Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Lawcast. This time, we're going back to cover one of WrestleMania's greatest triumphs. It's a show that, at the time, was unquestionably every hardcore fan's favorite WrestleMania, but with subsequent events, maybe it has a more mixed legacy. It's WrestleMania 20, where it all begins again. Hughes, how'd you feel about this one?
It's no secret that as we've gone through all of the WrestleManias, from 1 now all the way to 20, my God, we've been doing this for years,
Yeah.
that most of them have sucked. In fact, I would go so far as to say that 18 of them have been trash, poop from a butt, so to speak. This one, though, this might be the best one. I think I actually value it more than I value 17 in a lot of ways. It almost feels like the perfect encapsulation of the WrestleMania concept in a way that ties it all throughout all 20 of the ones that we've seen before. It's beautiful. This is the first one that I can unabashedly say I fucking love it.
Wow. Well, there's a couple of things that I feel like have happened here. One is WrestleMania has just gotten bigger and bigger. When you look at WrestleMania 17, it was a great show. It was a huge show, but really there was only one true main event. Like there was no question Rock versus Austin was the main event.
Right.
Here we're getting into the era where every WrestleMania has 5 matches that you could call the main event. And it's grown in the sense that they've taken over the wrestling industry and they own all the stars. Like they just have a monopoly. So they have more talent than they had, more stars than in any previous era. The issue with this show is a lot of the stars are on their way out the door. I mean, when you look at it, Austin's retired. Hogan is nowhere to be found. Rock is doing his last match. Foley is just doing the occasional match at this point. Angle is having neck problems, and his career is once again in doubt. And Lesnar is on his way out the door. So is Goldberg. They are losing an unbelievable amount of talent. So they have got to make some new stars. And they do have some studs. I mean, they've got John Cena, they've got Randy Orton, they've got Batista, they've got Edge, they've got Shelton Benjamin. Those are some great prospects, but none of those guys feel like they're quite ready to take the ball. They could all use another year to build themselves. So they need a stopgap. And the guys they turn to are maybe not the guys you would have expected. It's Chris Benoit and Eddie Guerrero who end up coming out of this show as the top stars in the company.
And in the case of Eddie, that's not super surprising. I mean, if you were watching any sort of the TV up through this point, like he catapults from basically
the previous couple years he's been on fire.
Yeah. And like literally by the time you get to like his match with Chavo at the Rumble, he is obviously the most over man in the company. It's not close. Even during the previous years when they had more stars, this still would have been a noteworthy catapult to stardom. But when it comes to Benoit, it's almost more like, hey, we just drafted a new quarterback. We're not quite ready to throw him out there. Let's bring in that veteran who will hold it down for us until he's ready.
Yeah, and Benoit has been heating up in the months leading up to this, really for over a year. Really starting, I'd say, with that Angle match at the Royal Rumble 2003. Like starting on that night, it just feels like he's gotten a little more. The fans are really starting to respect how great a ring worker he is. He's had his couple shots at the title, and he always puts up such an amazing fight, but he always comes up just short in the most heartbreaking fashion. It's become this thing, Benoit can't win the big one. Benoit is never going to be the world's champion. This is his one and only shot. He had to kick in the door to get here.
And it's not just that that's the storyline. That's how we as Smark fans felt at the time. It's like the guys we like never actually get the big opportunity. It's always just going to be anybody we like gets in a match with Triple H and he buries them. Yeah. Like Lesnar and Triple H are the stars, and the people we actually like are just doomed to mid-card obscurity.
And Vince McMahon can't have been enthusiastic about putting the belt on Chris Benoit. He was skeptical of that, and he had to be looking around for, is there anybody else we could do this with? But there's just not a lot of other options when you look at the roster. Nobody else jumps out at me as like, oh yeah, that guy is a good option to carry the title right now.
Oh no, they've murdered every single. Here's the thing: This is a very hopeful show. They build a lot of stars on this show, but you got to remember that all the up-and-coming stars they had in like '02 are dead. Dead, deader than dead.
Triple H took Booker and Van Dam out back and blew their heads off. So
they are in a tag team on this show.
A tag team of just two hopeless guys who are never getting back to the main event.
That's so embarrassing for them to be here in that way. Just like, hey, it's the failure team. You love them, but they're never going to win.
I don't know. With a concerted effort to build Booker, couldn't you have come back here and it's like he's going to exercise his wrestling? The previous year he came all the way, had the biggest match of his life, and he came up short. And this time, like, that feels like New Japan booking, that like this time he's going to do it. But that's not how WWE books.
That's exactly what they just did with Naito. Is it took like 5 years for him to finally get there and actually beat Okada and win the title and become the guy. That's not how WWE does things.
No, Yeah, I mean, I guess there's a question of whether Booker had any credibility left after the previous year, but he's a better option to be the champion than Benoit. Like, he's much better promo, much bigger. He is starting to get a little old, but he's probably still a few years younger than Benoit at this point.
I guess that's kind of the question, too. Like, I'm sure there are some notable examples, but Benoit might be the worst promo ever to hold the World Heavyweight Championship. Or to hold any sort of world title in WWE to this point.
Brock Lesnar's pretty bad, too.
But he had Heyman.
He had Heyman, and he was Brock Lesnar. He could have never said a word, and he would have been over.
Yeah. So, like, Benoit is still at the level of, delivering, like, wrestling school level promos. Yeah. No, like, he delivers a promo on the show, and it's just like, oh, that sucks.
No, that was never his skill set. Yeah, that's a good question. He is down there as far as, like, worst promos ever. To be champion, to be a top guy, and he's, I don't know, 5'9", probably 5'10".
He's not a guy you want to send to a press conference and be like, hey, here's the guy who represents our company. It's Chris Benoit.
5'10", kind of pale, receding hairline. I mean, great physique and incredible shape, but yeah, I mean, 6 inches shorter than Triple H.
Also terrifyingly intense, with a habit of worrying the people who meet him.
Yeah.
Not to telegraph what's coming later, but even so, like, he's the most personable guy.
I mean, it is. That's the cloud that hangs over this show. The ending is such a triumph, and it's a dream that turned into a nightmare because both guys will be dead within a couple of years. Eddie, of course, of heart failure. Benoit in a truly horrific murder-suicide.
Like, if you think about, let's say, the 3 happiest moments in WrestleMania history, you'd have to say they're Hogan beating Andre, this moment here, and Bryan triumphing at WrestleMania 30, right?
Yep.
2 out of those 3 have unspeakably sad epilogues. It's really a bummer.
Yeah, it's wrestling. There's not a lot of happy endings in this industry.
There really aren't.
Way too. I mean, this is the era of wrestlers dying young. Like, we've talked about it before, but I swear to God, it was like every week in this era somebody else died, and not nobodies, like big names, the British Bulldog, the Big Boss Man, just week after week. Oh, another one's dead. Kurt Hennig, Rick Rude.
Yeah,
these guys are dying in their 40s. Like, it was horrifying. It was a crisis.
Everybody who was a big star from like 1985 to 1995 dropped dead at 45. Like, it's amazing the ones who have managed to make it past. Like, it's incredible. Like, it was truly a depressing time to be a wrestling fan. And then that was capped off by Eddie and Benoit. Yeah. And it really felt like by the time you got to that point, it's like, man, everybody's dead. Like, who was it that said, like, man, all my friends are gone? Like, I sit at the bar and there's nobody left.
Benoit.
It was Benoit himself.
Yeah, I can't think it was Chavo or somebody. Just remembered him like sitting there at the bar one night, kind of late, having had some drinks, and just being like, "All my friends are dying."
And he's right. Like, it's insane.
It was a very sad time, and the upside of those tragedies was the business did change, and thankfully we got drug testing. WWE started sending people to rehab. Wrestling is in a much healthier place now than it had been.
Now the guys who were dying off at 45 are still fucking wrestling. Like it's like they haven't even left the ring.
No, and a lot of them look better than ever.
Oh my god. Like some of the guys from the 90s at 42 look like they were 92. Meanwhile, 42-year-old AJ Styles looks like a Greek god.
Yeah. So for this WrestleMania, they go back to New York City, Madison Square Garden. I don't think there was ever any question that WrestleMania 20 was going to be at the Garden. The more interesting question was where they'd go the next year after kind of the bomb of WrestleMania 19 in Seattle, how that would affect their business going forward. But no question, I think they would run this at the Garden. Almost certainly the last WrestleMania at Madison Square Garden. I can't imagine they'll ever go back to an arena instead of a stadium for WrestleMania.
Well, at the time, a lot of people were making a big deal about the fact that, like, oh, they're going to cost themselves so much money at the gate because you can only fit not even 20,000 people into Madison Square Garden. Like, it's not that big.
Again, yeah, just to establish something, Madison Square Garden holds like 18,000 people. Any number above that is bullshit.
Yeah, and they say 18,500 paid, and unless they're counting people sitting in the parking lot watching on closed circuit TV, that shit ain't true. But like, so like they could have filled a 50,000 seat stadium with this show. Like we've established at this point that this is something that sells out stadiums. But the gate doesn't wind up being that low because literally everyone in every rich wrestling fan has to be at this show. This is the ticket, maybe ever, that you have to go to. I'm sure they were charging an arm and a fucking leg.
Yeah, I mean, so the gate ends up being 2.4 million on, I don't have the paid number, but I'd imagine it's in the 16,000 range. 2,000 comps sounds about right. So that works out to an average ticket price of about $150. You compare it to the previous year, the gate was a little higher in Seattle, but that was with, I don't know, 50,000 paid. So the average ticket price there was, let's do a little math here. Divided by 50,000. Average ticket price in Seattle was more like $50. So they jacked the ticket prices sky high here. So they're probably charging, I don't know, $1,000 to sit in the front row, $500 to sit on the floor. The cheap tickets are probably $50, $80 for the upper deck. And now they've reached a point with WrestleMania where they run stadiums and like even the tickets in the nosebleeds are a couple $100.
Yeah, it's the best of both worlds. That's why they're doing $16 million gates for WrestleMania now.
But yeah, they didn't really cost themselves much of anything at the gate. And the buy rate ends up being not spectacular. I mean, they do. I saw some people had this rate over $1 million. Other had it at like 880,000. The 880 sounds more legitimate. WWE, like shortly after the show, estimated that it had done about 850,000 buys. I have to imagine if it had done $1 million, they would have been reporting a much higher number.
Yeah, I don't know how they were measuring like international buys at this point. I don't
think they had any international business at this point.
Yeah, I'm thinking that that's true too, because later on it would be like you would get the initial number, which was the domestic number, and then they would tack on the international stuff later. But I don't think they had 150,000 international buys.
No, I mean at this point it's not. They're not on pay-per-view in most markets overseas. Like they don't have pay-per-view in England. It's just on Sky Sports. That was their big international. And I imagine the domestic always included Canada.
Right, I would think so.
So yeah, 880,000 buys is up dramatically. I mean, the previous year had only done 550,000, so that's a gigantic year-over-year increase.
And it's not that the matches themselves are bigger, though as we get into the stories behind all of them, I mean, it's pretty clear that they're built to 1 billion times better.
The build to this show is way better. 19 was a phenomenal card on paper, but then when you actually looked at how the matches were built, none of them were really hot going in, whereas here just about every match is hot.
Literally, like, up and down the card. Like, other than if you take the tag matches out and the one where just everyone's getting their tits out, like, there's not a match on this card that I wouldn't argue had, like, less than, like, a 6-month build.
And there's something for everybody here. Like you've got a couple big world title matches, some classic wrestling matches, legends. You've got, big storyline moment with The Undertaker going back to the dead man character. Just about every style of match you can imagine, every kind of storyline, there's something for every fan to enjoy here.
You got a couple of like up and coming faces being coronated, some up and coming heels being coronated, a big romance storyline. Like I don't think I can think of another WrestleMania that really hit on the idea of the variety show to this extent. And like the only thing it's really missing is like a hardcore match, which we'll get later. Like we almost got that, and that maybe we're like that away from this being maybe the best wrestling show WWE ever put on. But even so, like I am passionately in love with this show from start to finish.
Yeah, I think you like it more than I do, but it is a great show. It's definitely one of my favorite WrestleManias. It's one I look forward to rewatching each year.
I would like to point out that it is not my favorite WrestleMania. To those of you who have been with us since the very beginning, you know that WrestleMania 9 and all of its shitty glory is my favorite WrestleMania.
Oh, well, tune into our Patreon for WrestleMania 9 Revisited. Yes, we're actually redoing WrestleMania 9 because
hell
Kish
yeah.
loves it so much.
It's my favorite. It's so great. There's an elephant, Steve.
It is the only one with an elephant.
It's the only one with an elephant.
Or a camel.
God, it's so good.
So many animals. More animals than any other WrestleMania.
But I think part of what makes this particular show so special is not just what happens in the ring, but like they build such an amazing production around it. The set is the best one they've ever constructed in Madison Square Garden, and maybe the best one they've ever constructed, period. Just with like the New York skyline with the video playing through it. It's sort of like the model for all future sets for them. Like they just do it on like a bigger, grander scale in the stadium.
Yeah, that's the thing. Because it's the Garden, they don't go with the true small Garden. You know, for a lot of the shows at Madison Square Garden, the camera is facing the entrance. They don't do that here. They do set the entrance up to the side, so they have a little more room. They don't have to just do like the tiny little doors that they did at WrestleMania 10. But yeah, here they've got like the New York skyline, but it's a screen, so they can do stuff with the buildings. Great set.
Yeah. They also like do this truly amazing video right at the beginning where just like everyone, heel and face, talks about like how amazing WrestleMania is and what an honor it is. And like it genuinely brought a tear to my eye because a lot of these are like legends returning. And we've watched 20 of these WrestleManias now, Steve. Seeing all of these people come back and like be so emotional about it. The Big Show's moment where he's just like, you haven't breathed until you've wrestled at WrestleMania, is like the most emotional thing I've ever heard him say. Like you can hear like his voice shaking as he says it. Like it's genuinely like teared me up. Like I was like, fuck. Like this is special. And like that carries through the whole show.
It's seeped in history. And one of the best things they did is they brought back the Hall of Fame.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank God. They had not done Hall of Fame inductions since Survivor Series 1996. So after 8 years of hiatus, they bring back the Hall of Fame, and they induct a hell of a class here. In a lot of ways, it's the guys who built WrestleMania. It's the guys who built the Northeast Territory. They've got Big John Studd, who's inducted by The Big Show, Don Morocco, inducted by Mick Foley, Greg Valentine, inducted by Jimmy Hart, Harley Race, inducted by Ric Flair, Jesse Ventura, inducted by his son Tyrell, Junkyard Dog, inducted by Big Cat Ernie Ladd, Sergeant Slaughter, inducted by Pat Patterson, Billy Graham, inducted by Triple H, Tito Santana by Shawn Michaels, Bobby Heenan by Blackjack Lanza, and our first celebrity inductee is Pete Rose, inducted by Kane. Love that.
That's so good. And, like, you can tell that this means something to Vince McMahon. This didn't just come out of nowhere. I don't think this is something somebody else pitched. Because these are all the people that he's grateful to. These are all the people who helped him take it from when his dad owned it to when he made it a success. These were his horses. Like, other than, like, Backlund, who would have been the other guy to throw in there.
There's a couple. I mean, Bruno would have been great for WrestleMania 20, but Bruno is not ready to work with Vince yet. That's still 10 years off before they can get him. And then Hogan would have been an obvious one here, but right. Hogan is also on the outs with the company. Wasn't happy with his WrestleMania payoff the previous year. I'm sure he called Vince up, was like, "Yeah, that's a nice check, brother, but seems like it's missing a decimal point here."
Also, let's just be clear about this. If Hogan is on this Hall of Fame bit, Jesse Ventura and he ain't gonna be there.
Yeah. Yeah. It was so cool having Jesse back at WrestleMania. We'll get to what they actually had him do on this show in a little bit.
But yeah, it was a wonderful event. It wasn't really televised. It wasn't like the fan fest that it is now.
No, this was much smaller. This was at the Hilton in New York City. It was just like they rented out a nice hotel ballroom, and I'm sure they sold some tickets, but it's mostly just like the guys and their families and the other wrestlers. They filmed it, but it wasn't televised. They included it on the DVD as an extra. But yeah, it's not what it would later become. I think the year after this was the first time it was on TV, and now it's grown to the point where it's, they get 10, 15,000 people there, and the fans are chanting along, and it's very much part of the show. This was a much smaller and more intimate version of that.
This was Vince's version of like the Cauliflower Alley Club, where it's just, let's honor the people who meant a lot to us. Let the people who love them the most, like, induct them. Let them choose who inducts them, and just like give them a couple minutes to say some stuff. It's a beautiful. You can tell how much it means to the people who get inducted this year. Like, even people like, you don't necessarily think that like Graham is going to be all of that into this, but he really is. Harley Race seems genuinely touched by the words that Ric Flair says about him. Like, everyone up and down, they're so happy that this is happening. It means a lot.
No, there's weird stuff with Billy Graham. I think he pawned his ring, and he doesn't consider, like, he doesn't like that he's in the Hall of Fame because they put Abdullah the Butcher in or something like that.
It was something like
something
that.
Something stupid. Like, just get over yourself.
Billy Graham is one of our leading
shitty
weirdos.
Person.
Yeah, he's not exactly the model wrestling veteran citizen at this point. It sucks that you couldn't have Bruno here. It sucks that you couldn't have Hogan here. But like, it's just, as far as establishing what the Hall of Fame, what they want it to be, this is a great first class.
Oh, it's a loaded class. Like, you got 3 or 4 guys here who could have been headliners. Like, Ventura could definitely headline. JYD, if he unfortunately had passed away, so you don't usually want a posthumous induction to be your headliner. Slaughter or Graham, Heenan could headline. I mean, Heenan gave an incredibly emotional speech with he's crying as he says his only regret is he wishes Monsoon could be there.
I get misty every time I even think about that speech, because Bobby, like, his health is not doing great.
No, that's the other thing.
Point.
Unfortunately, he's got cancer, and he's lost a ton of weight. He basically had to remove his jaw to treat the cancer. He's very much not himself anymore. But yeah, it's so great to see him.
Oh God.
So yeah, I mean, as far as the things that could have happened that didn't here. I've heard Vince really wanted Austin versus Hogan here, but I don't think Austin was interested in wrestling. I've heard there was some talk about doing Austin versus Vince, but that is not the right time. It's too late for that. Nobody would have cared at this point.
Well, the fascinating thing, and we'll get to this, but based on the build to this show, they basically did Austin versus Lesnar on this show.
I very much remember being like, I wonder if Austin is going to get added to that, and it's actually going to be a triple threat match.
Like, based on the build, they build it as a triple threat.
But like, that was just because Goldberg didn't have any dates left on his contract, and like they asked him to do more, and he said no. So Goldberg wasn't around for any of the build to that, so they just had to improvise and just do a bunch of angles with Lesnar and Austin.
Yeah, but what else almost happened on the show?
I mean, this was kind of the one time you could have done The Rock versus Shawn Michaels, but
even though, like, are you one of those people who like spent your entire like wrestling adolescence being like, when are they gonna finally do that match?
Not really, but it's a shame we never got it because I think it would have been amazing. But Rock doesn't like Shawn Michaels, is my understanding.
Hates Shawn Michaels.
Always Rock had a lot of respect for Bret Hart. Felt like Bret was one of the guys who really helped bring him along in the business. And he felt like there's 2 things with Shawn. One, he felt like Shawn and Hunter were burying him when he was first coming in, and second, Montreal. So Rock, I don't think ever would have been interested in working with Shawn.
Is it bizarre to you to think of like The Rock as being part of the company during Montreal? Like that seems like a totally different era. I know he's there. It's just
it is a little.
Weird.
I mean, he wasn't really himself yet, but yeah, he's around. I mean, he wrestled Bret Hart on an episode of Raw in 1997.
I know. It's just super weird to me to like think that like The Rock would be caught up in something to do with Montreal.
1997 is one of those weird years where you've got kind of the clash of the generations.
Kind of like this one, 2004. Yeah. Like it's very similar because what we have on this card is basically half up and coming hot young talent and half people leaving, and then like the 5 guys who aren't going anywhere who they're desperately trying to build around.
Yeah. I mean, the other big thing you could have done would have been that Benoit versus Michaels or Benoit versus Triple H 1-on-1. I think the decision to make it a triple threat instead was probably the right one, because I can understand them being skittish about Benoit having to draw in the main event on his own. Benoit is not an established main eventer. He's really only main evented 1 or 2 pay-per-views in his career, and those were both. He wrestled The Rock at that Fully Loaded 2000, and then he was included in a couple multi-man matches, but he is not at all proven as a main event draw, and to have him headline WrestleMania is asking him to do a lot.
Not just any WrestleMania either. Like Vince, this is arguably, since maybe 3, the one that Vince seemed to put a lot of himself into. Like his face is the last one you see in the opening video of him just being proud of his company in the next generation. He personally came up with the tagline, "It all begins again." Like this is Vince's, it's in Madison Square Garden, Vince's house. Like literally everything about this is Vince honoring, it's not him honoring himself so much, but like him paying tribute to what he's created. So like it matters what the main event of this show is.
And that's very much, I feel like, emerging as a theme of these WrestleManias, that these are the years where they reconnect with the past. They start, the Attitude Era was very, fuck the past, this is where it's at. They don't want to talk about Hogan and Savage and Piper, because those guys all work for WCW. And, they're on the outs with Bruno Sammartino and Bob Backlund and, some of the other legends of the past. They're living in the moment in the late 90s. Now that they've won the war, that they own wrestling history, they can very much start to look back on the past with pride. And I mean, I think also on another level, kind of reincorporate more kind of traditional wrestling booking. Like, this is really the only era of WWE where we have a long-term heel champion on top. Triple H is the champion on Raw for like basically 3 years here. And Evolution is basically a recreation of the 4 Horsemen. There's a lot of like, I think you can attribute that to some of the guys they're having get involved in creative are, Michael Hayes, Dusty Rhodes, Ted DiBiase, guys who came up in that territory era, and they're starting to, bring back some of those ideas.
But also, I think Vince really kind of looks at what his promotion is, and like, you can tell it happens like around late 2002, and he's just like, what kind of wrestling promote? Like, I own the industry now. What do I want wrestling to be? And like, there's a concerted effort to like, okay, less crazy fucking angles, less super risky matches, less make things mean more. Like, there's a return to like finishers being really important, and like, it's just the
slow your matches down, work the quote unquote WWE style. That was a big thing. I could pinpoint this moment, is that's when we hear that like there's these meetings where Vince is like coaching up the boys on like showing them clips of like this is how we work matches here. This is our style. Showing them clips of like Benoit and Guerrero and the guys who he feels like really get how to work their style of match.
And it works because over the next few years, like that style takes over to the point where now, I mean, like the indie influence has really bled into a lot in recent years.
Oh, yeah, no, I think there's a totally different. You watch a WWE show today, like the matches are at a totally different pace. Here, they're really working holds. They're really selling. Like it is much more old school.
Yeah, it's to the point where like when it works, like I'll always argue that the WWE style, when you nail it in like a long main event match, is aside from like King's Road All Japan, the best it can be. Like the maximum level of drama wrung from every moment. And when it's not good, it's torturous.
See every Triple H WrestleMania match.
Yeah. So like that's what Vince wants. That he wants like slow builds to big audience reactions.
That's what I've heard. That's what you've always heard is Vince a great match is a roller coaster. You take him up and you put him back down. You take him back up, you bring him back down, and then you get the big finish.
Which is one way of putting it. Michael Hayes has put it another way, which is to say, you know how when you're jerking off and you start to get there and you're almost to the end, but then you bring it back a little bit and then you bust that nut and paint the ceiling.
God, wrestling is fucking gross. Okay, so we start by cutting straight into the arena where the Boys Choir of Harlem perform America the Beautiful. This is they hadn't done America the Beautiful or the national anthem for the previous few shows. A very welcome return, an absolutely beautiful performance here.
I don't mean to make this sound crass. Because I don't mean it in this way, but this is like porn for Vince McMahon. And this is how you know that this is this is a show that he took a lot of deliberate care and like put a lot of himself into, because the return of this is about as Vince as you can possibly get. And have like the Boys Choir of Harlem do like a very solemn and beautiful interpretation of America the Beautiful. Like that's a return to the WrestleMania Vince wants.
Yeah. Man, when you think about it, they've had some amazing musical guests at WrestleMania.
Yeah, Limp Bizkit, Saliva, Drowning Pool.
Yeah. I was talking about Aretha Franklin, Little Richard, Run DMC.
Boyz II Men,
yeah. And then the package rolls. As we talked about, great package. Vince is on this. So Vince just kind of walks into the darkened shot, and the narrator talks about 20 years of WrestleMania. We see the growth and the history of the show, all the moments, and then we go through each of the top guys talking about how special Madison Square Garden is, how important WrestleMania is, and then it ends with a shot of Vince and Shane holding his newborn son, and we get the tagline where it all begins again. That's a fun little wink to the history of the company, although it turns out Shane will not be the successor to Vince McMahon, as we'll find out in the coming years.
That's so weird. And all I can think when I watch this now is like, when is somebody's kid finally going to get on WWE television? Like, I guess it's like Aurora, right? Would be the first in line. How old is she now? Like 14?
Who the hell is Aurora? Is that Shane? I thought
that's Steph and Triple H's kid. Their
Shane's
first daughter.
Yeah, Shane's kids are got to be older than Steph and Triple H's, because Shane is older than Stephanie and got married sooner.
Yeah, but they're not. I don't know that Shane would want
Shane.
them.
Well, I mean, they were at WrestleMania. They were at the WrestleMania where he wrestled the Undertaker. They all came out. Well, they're all pretty young.
But yeah, at some point we're going to reach an era where like the kids, like Vince McMahon's grandkids, show up.
Opening match for the United States Championship. The Big Show defends against John Cena. Cena has really gotten over in the year. Last WrestleMania, he's battle rapping with cardboard cutouts on Heat. This WrestleMania, he's kicking off the show and getting one of the loudest reactions of anybody.
They do such a good job with John Cena. It has to be said, because the second that they decide that he's the guy, they ruin him immediately. But right here, they give him so much time. They're just like, hey, this kid's getting pretty hot. He's coming up. Let's slow burn everything. Like, they slow burn his face turn. He doesn't win it.
Could have put the world title on him here. Like, he was over to the point where you could have done it, but it would have been too soon. It's the mistake they made with Reigns, where they went for it too soon rather than giving it time. Like, it's so smart to have him win the U.S. title here and get the world title the year after this. Like, it still ended up backfiring, but it's good that they took their time with it.
Yeah, they take their time with his face turn, so when it happens, the fans really want it.
Yeah.
And then, like, they hint at a main event thing when they do that triple threat with Kurt Angle at the No Way Out. And, like, they don't have him win, but, like, they hint that he's almost ready for that. And then they have this match. And despite the fact that this is This may be the most over United States Championship match in the history of this company.
Maybe
Like, the fans
one.
They are white hot for Cena. But we also have to give Big Show credit. Because starting with the Royal Rumble, like, this is one of those, like, 3-month runs where, like, the Big Show is suddenly for real.
Yeah. He was so dominant in that Rumble, and it put Benoit over so strong when Benoit was able to eliminate him.
Is this the year where he comes back after being gone for a bit and just annihilates everyone at, like, one at a time?
No, he's been around. He's been around. He won the U.S. title from Eddie back in the fall.
Man, which year was it?
It was 2001 where he came in and he, like, beat up everybody, and The Rock eliminated him after like 2 minutes.
Oh, I'm not even talking about the Rumble. There's just this one episode of SmackDown where he comes in and the whole roster is, like, brawling, and, like, he comes out and he just murders the whole roster one by one.
You know what I think you're talking about is a couple weeks after this when they did the draft.
Yeah.
It ended with the Raw roster and the SmackDown roster all fighting each other. And yeah, like, he comes out and he just wipes out everybody. Like, Ric Flair sees him and screams and runs away.
And it's just one of those moments where, like, oh, look at what the Big Show could have been. Yeah. Look at what the Big Show could be.
Yeah, that's just Big Show's career. They'd book him well for like 3 months at a time, and then somebody'd be like, I mean, here they built him up to put over Cena here. Like, okay, so Cena starts off, he does his rap. You've got the franchise player on the Super Bowl stage, so let's get that gorilla out of his cage. Ain't no way I'm losing to that King Kong ripoff. That's like Gary Coleman beating Patrick Ewing in a tip-off. Everyone knows who can't see me. I'm itching to beat him like a penis with an STD. John Cena's raps were awful.
Yeah, they sure were. But literally, like, this is the best battle rapping audience to do it in front of ever. Because every terrible bullshit whack line, they're just like, oh!
Big Show comes out looking especially greasy and gross.
Oh, God, he's got the long hair.
Yeah, the hair and the mustache and the chest. It's just such a disgusting look, but it's so heelish to me.
But this is also the point in time where, like, he's bulked up in a good way. So, like, rather than just looking like fat Big Show or, like, jeans-wearing Big Show, he looks like, literally like a brick wall walking towards you.
Cole puts over Big Show's accomplishments at Madison Square Garden. He beat Brock Lesnar for the WWE Championship here. He retired Hulk Hogan here, and he did something else that I can't remember.
I was genuinely surprised that he had done that stuff. Like, that's not stuff that I knew that Big Show had done.
He didn't. I mean, it was just Hogan's last match. Like, was a house show match at Madison Square Garden against him, and then Hogan quit because he was unhappy with his money, and they started billing Big Show as having retired Hulk Hogan at Madison Square Garden.
Hey, that works.
He beat Lesnar for the WWE title at Survivor Series 2002. That was at the Garden, and can't think of what the third thing was.
It was something from the Attitude Era, but I don't remember what it was.
Yeah. Big Show dominant. This is the standout from this match. No offense from Cena until his comeback. Big Show
good.
Dominates the match.
Because this is also a point where John Cena... Here's the book on John Cena, okay? If we were doing like a Q Scouts report on John Cena at this point, it's charisma exploding out of every orifice. Does not know how to wrestle at all.
Yeah, he's super awkward in the ring.
He knows how to wrestle the OVW style, which is what he did when he was Bright Tights John Cena. And that's fine. And he knows how to wrestle as a heel a little bit. He has no idea how to work this ground and pound babyface thug rapper gimmick as a babyface in the ring. None. So they compromise by just being like, okay, every match, whoever he's in there with is just going to beat his ass for 10 minutes, and then he's going to hit his 5 moves of doom.
Yeah. He's got some, I don't know, I think they were just going for like, oh, he's unorthodox, but his offense, like, it feels like his moveset doesn't make sense for his character. Like,
it doesn't.
That sit-down hip toss, the blue thunder bomb, the what do you call it, the flashback or the throwback, where it was like the
jumping over neck breaker.
Yeah, like neck breaker face buster thing. Like, none of this seems to really fit, like, his street character.
Oh, yeah. They keep saying, like, he grounds and pounds. I've never seen John Cena take down anyone else ever. He delivers some of the worst punches imaginable at this point in his career. So, like, no, that is not a good description of his character at all.
So Cena finally makes his comeback. He hits the FU, which the FU on the Big Show is always a sight to be seen.
This is arguably, like, I know that the F5 on Big Show is awesome, but this is arguably more
impressive. Way more impressive because you have to spin him.
I know, but, like, it's Brock.
Okay,
like, John Cena is a physical freak, but Brock is Brock, and he's also much bigger than Cena.
The most impressive thing I've ever seen is Kurt Hennig doing the fisherman suplex on Big Show.
Perfect plex on Big Show. What the fuck?
He did it in WCW when Big Show was much smaller and more athletic and really got him up. But then he also did it to him like in the Attitude Era when Big Show was super fat.
Like, but when Cena gets him up for it here, like, Big Show's so much bigger than Cena that you almost can't even see Cena underneath of him. Like, it looks like Cena's picking up a car. Like, that's, like, how it visually appeals.
I mean, when you really think about it, like, of course John Cena can squat 500 pounds. I bet he can squat way more than that.
Right.
But it's still cool to see this.
And it's not like he's doing what Brock did. Like, Brock got Big Show up, and it's just like, 500 pounds, fucking whatever. Throw that shit out of the ring. Whereas for Cena, they got to be careful. Like, Big Show, like, lays himself on Cena's shoulders. Cena does a squat thrust. Big Show falls off. But, like, the crowd reacts like they've just seen the biggest move ever performed.
So Cena tries to use his chain. The referee takes it away from him. Cena uses that distraction to grab brass knuckles, hits Big Show with them, then hits a second FU for the pin. Cena wins the U.S. title. That was a perfect 5-minute opener.
And it's a huge pop when he wins.
That goes wild.
And let's give Cena credit, too, because, like, Cena's doing a lot of little stuff here that's really working. Like, he's got these great facial expressions. Like, when he wins, he reacts like he's just, like won, like, the world title, and it's, like, the biggest moment of his whole career. He's, like, shocked, and he's running around, and he's so excited. Like, that's great young babyface stuff. Like, they're doing such a great job of letting him slowly build himself up and find this character, and the crowd loves him. Like, arguably, other than Eddie, he might be the second biggest babyface in this company already.
Backstage, Jonathan Coachman goes into Eric Bischoff's office. Bischoff says that he's heard Undertaker is at Madison Square Garden, and he wants Coachman to go find him.
Okay, we got to talk about Johnny Nitro, right?
Yeah. Because Johnny Blaze, Johnny Ace, Johnny Spade, I don't know what he was going by at this point.
It would have been really funny if he had gone by Johnny Ace. That would have been really great, actually.
Did I imagine that? He didn't actually use Johnny Ace at any point?
I don't know, but I would have fucking loved it if he had. Johnny Ace just passes along the Ace Crusher and all of that stuff. But, like, they're doing this thing where, like, he's, like, Bischoff's protege, sort of?
Like his assistant.
They just bring him in, and he's just
there.
Something
similar with Val Venus the previous year, where he was Bischoff's chief of staff.
Yeah, but, like, Johnny gets way less to do. Like, yeah. Johnny's not ready yet.
He's an intern.
Yeah. Like,
Johnny's got great hair.
There's this awkward moment in the office. Like, Johnny's wearing this trench coat, and he kind of turns around, and, like, Coach goes to, like, give him a fist bump, and Johnny gives him the most awkward fist bump handshake hybrid that I've ever seen a human do. And that's his one moment on screen at WrestleMania. And you know that he looked back on that and it's just like, fucking, I fucked that up so bad.
This might be Bischoff's only WrestleMania appearance.
How weird is that?
It is. It's really strange.
Also, we shit on Coach a lot on this podcast, and for ample reason. He's the worst.
But he's funny as, like,
this character.
Stooge. Yeah.
Yeah, this character is just, like, the heartless stooge of Eric Bischoff. Like, the guy who has all his power because he's thrown it in with Bischoff, and you know he's going to get his comeuppance someday. Like, that, it's a perfect character for Coach, because you want to hate him so bad.
Then we go to Randy Orton, Ric Flair, and Batista, who are all looking dapper in their suits. They are standing in a stairwell at the Garden. This is a notable stairwell. It's the one where Randy Orton beat up Mick Foley and kicked him down a flight of stairs on Raw the previous June, which is where this feud kicked off, and Orton proceeds to run through the events of this feud, that Evolution beat up Foley, and then Foley came back, and Orton challenged him to a match. Foley refused to fight Orton and walked out of the match, wouldn't even fight Orton when Orton spat in his face. Then Foley came back at the Royal Rumble, eliminated Orton, and they fought, and Evolution beat up Foley again, but then The Rock made the save to set up The Rock and Mick Foley against Evolution for this show.
I don't know who is specifically responsible for this segment. I'm going to guess it's Kevin Dunn. It kind of feels like a Kevin Dunn production. Whoever it is, this is a triumph. This is a cinematography nerd's wet dream. They know that Randy Orton can't cut a 10-minute promo. He's not ready for that. He's perfect at like little cocky shit talks here and there. So what they do is they put Flair Batista flanking him in the stairwell. And what they'll do is like 30-second bites. It'll be like Randy Orton tells a little story, and then we cut to what he's talking about and like play part of the video. And then we go back to a different camera angle, and then Randy Orton tells a little bit more. And they do that like 5 times. Eventually, like the last shot is like up the stairway from like where Mick Foley would have been on the ground looking up at Randy Orton after he kicked him down the stairs.
And he looks huge. Yeah,
and like Randy's just like 10 feet tall at the top of the stairway looking amazing in that suit.
Yeah.
And like he ends it with like, here's where it began, and tonight it all begins again. And this might be the best promo of his career.
It's not a very long list.
No, it's really not. But like this is how you make a star. In much the same way that they're doing Just the Right Thing with Cena. They're also perfectly booking Orton.
Yeah.
Because
should note that Orton is the Intercontinental Champion.
They're not exposing him. He constantly has somebody else with him. He's constantly being produced in such a way that masks his flaws and like accentuates his positives. Like they are with the reason Orton and Cena are still to this day the guys for this company for the last 20 years is largely because of the work they do in this year. Yeah. Like they masterfully push these two. And I think this is the last time they successfully build 2 guys from scratch like this. Other than the Shield guys.
Batista, who's just standing in the background here. Who the fuck would think that a year from now it's going to be Batista winning the World Heavyweight title at WrestleMania?
Batista's like literally like a cardboard cutout with muscles. Like that's what he is here. Like he's nothing. He can barely work. They're having him in tag matches with Flair just so Flair can teach him how to fucking work a match. Yeah. A year from now, he's going to be like tearing the house down.
A year from now, he's the man. But yeah, here I don't think anybody really saw that.
Nobody saw
his rise is incredible. Whereas everybody by now can see Randy Orton and John Cena coming. I don't think anybody sees Batista.
I would have to imagine that on some level they were like, okay, this is 2004. Next year, Orton and Cena win the world titles. Yeah. Year after that, Orton versus Cena, main event of WrestleMania.
Yeah, probably. I mean, Cena does win. I mean, the mistake they made with Orton is they put the belt on him too soon.
Yeah, because that's the thing.
They should have held it till the next WrestleMania for him.
Because Batista only becomes the man because they blow it with Orton, and they need a backup
somebody
plan.
else. And they do with Batista what they should have done with Orton and do the slow burn turn instead of rushing it.
So if they had that patience, like literally the WrestleMania in 2006 should have been Cena versus Orton. We never get that match at WrestleMania.
Match if you'd done it properly. Yeah. We got it on every other pay-per-view.
Instead, when we finally do get it, we don't want it, and then we get it way too many times, and now it's ruined forever.
Next up, for the World Tag Titles, we've got Booker T and Rob Van Dam defending against La Resistance, Garrison Cade and Mark Jindrak, and the Dudley Boys. Oh boy.
Let's take a moment to discuss. Obviously,
who's the saddest of these 4 teams?
It's Booker and Rob Van Dam, who are literally like, hey, you know how we've been in 10 shitty thrown together tag teams? What if we just tag together ourselves? It's the equivalent of being like
mashup of their themes that they come out to.
One of can you dig it? It's the worst mashup I've ever heard. It's an abomination. But like, it's also so like, you can tell from their body language that they're not into this. It's not a good fit.
A year ago, Booker was in the world title match.
Yes.
And now he's doing this. That's a King Kong Bundy style fall.
It's very depressing. And like, Rob Van Dam was in a hot angle, like not 4 months ago with Kane.
Yeah.
Like, they're over, and so they have the titles at least, so at least there's that. But it's a total waste of both of them. This is just how far they've fallen. But
my guess is before Rock became available to do that match, it was probably going to be Booker and Van Dam against Batista and Flair for the tag titles here. But because they got Rock, they had them pick up the titles earlier and just threw together this 4-way match to get guys on the show.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, if it had just been Booker and Van Dam versus the Dudleys, that's a good match. There's no problem there. That's like, if there were a pre-show here, this was a time when we did that, that's an ideal pre-show match, you know?
Tables match, hardcore match, would have been fun. You could do a storyline where the Dudleys think that like Van Dam's gone soft because he's teaming with Booker and whatever.
Yeah. Then we have Garrison Cade and Mark Jindrak.
Boy.
Their one beautiful moment was during the bounty story.
Yes.
Where Triple H puts a bounty on Goldberg, and then like they're just like, oh, they find out that like Flair has the briefcase, and then it's
Orton. Orton's got the briefcase. And they're like, Orton's just like, look, guys, the only way you can get this money is by taking out Goldberg. And they're like, no, we think there's another way we can get the money. And they kick Orton's ass and steal the briefcase.
And for like that half hour of Raw, they're the biggest stars in the industry.
And then Triple H kicks both their asses. That's one of my favorite episodes of Raw of all time. That's the one where Batista comes back and murders Goldberg.
That's how they re-debut him, and that's like the reformation of Evolution. It's like, yes.
The announcers are trying to push Jindrak and Cade. They have negative charisma.
Here's the thing. They try so hard to make Mark Jindrak happen on multiple occasions. Mark Jindrak has a great
angle right after this.
Yes. And that unbelievably ill-fated stable with Luther Reigns and Mark Jindrak in it. The problem is, Mark Jindrak is not... It's not even to say that he's not ready. He's never gonna be ready. He eventually gets over in Mexico by basically just being like a heelish male model. Yeah. Like, basically, like, his character becomes like an Instagram influencer, and that works. And Garrison Cade, they try like 20 times.
Put him with Chris Jericho.
And that was actually kind of working until, unfortunately, the substance abuse caught up with him. But, yeah, there's nothing here, man.
I always liked him and Trevor Murdoch as a tag team.
That was pretty funny. Though Murdoch totally stole the show from him at every opportunity.
I love Trevor Murdoch.
I vividly remember the Raw I watched where he busted out the fucking Code Red for the first time.
Oh my God.
The Fat Boy Code Red, the Code Red. You
remember when they were having him do movie reviews during the segments that would air on WWE.com during the commercials?
I do. It was real good. And they look like they're straight out of the power plant too. They got those like shiny pleather pants on, and they're just like, go away. You don't even look like you belong in this company.
Yeah. La Resistance has run its course. Nobody cares about them anymore.
How weird is it that like in a year they've come in, gotten super hot, gotten jobbed out, run their course. Savan Anye is already gone.
Yeah. Renee will get split off and get his solo push after this, which will end up flopping.
I didn't realize that La Resistance was supposed to be a vehicle to get Grenier over.
Yeah, Dupree was the star of the team.
He was a hugely highly touted prospect for them. I had no idea.
Yeah. Patterson loved him.
Yeah, Patterson thought he was like the next god. I mean, he was. La Resistance had some great.
Is he the one who was like 19 years old?
No, that's Dupree.
Okay, yeah, Dupree is like 20 here, something crazy like that.
When Dupree leaves the company after years, he's 22 years old.
Oh yeah, it's. What is he? So now he's like mid-30s.
Rene Dupree is 2 years older than me. He's 36.
That's nuts.
Right.
Yeah.
So he would have been 20 here, yeah, because it's 16 years ago. Yeah. 36.
So it's one fall to a finish. Booker and Van Dam retain with the axe kick and the frog splash.
Yeah,
Wasn't a very good match.
Nothing here to talk about.
We go backstage to Coach searching for Undertaker. He hears suspicious noises in a room, and then Gene Okerlund comes out, and he's like disheveled and sweaty and has lipstick on his face. Then Bobby Heenan comes out too, and he says they were just playing cards. And then Moolah and Mae Young come out. This was pretty funny.
There are so many segments like this that they've done over the years.
This is the first one, though. This becomes a WrestleMania-like trope that every year we'll have a goofy segment with all the legends.
The shame is that Okerlund and Heenan make this so fucking funny that they're just like, oh, we can do this all the time, and it's never funny again.
Sleazy Gene Okerlund. Have you ever seen the clips when that became his gimmick in WCW, that he was a dirty old man?
No.
Yeah, like WCW 2000, his character becomes hilarious. At one point, there's a promo where the Natural Born Thrillers are talking shit, and he just interrupts them. He's like, "Yeah, it's a pretty good line, you prick. Anybody else got anything to say?" He's like, yeah, "Blow it out your ass, O'Hare. I know guys who can take out your kneecaps."
Damn.
Yeah. That's the thing about Mean Gene is his character is so buttoned up, but we know the real Gene is a smooth operator with the ladies, drunk all the time, loved life on the road, loved to party.
And you could always just see it come through every so often. That's the Gene I fell in love with, is the guy who in the middle of a promo would be like, "You're a disgusting human being, you piece of crap."
What the hell's wrong with you? Or there's a famous one where Wendy Richter says something like, "I'm not going to let anybody lie on top of me for 3 seconds." And then he just bursts out laughing. Fuck it.
Fuck it.
Put that cigarette out.
God, what a hero. There's never been another interviewer who could even carry his jock. It's a shame that
wrestling's missing that, isn't it? An interviewer with credibility who's allowed to actually ask tough questions and can step in and kind of help somebody if they're struggling with their promo, instead of just a robot holding the microphone, which is what we have now.
Just the interchangeable Josh Matthews, which now have become interchangeable. Well, I like Charlie and I like Renee Young, and I've liked it when they've done it. I just remember the era in the thousands where it was just we go now to Josh Matthews. The segment where he was interviewing Mark Henry, and Mark Henry just grabs him by the neck and throws him off the screen, just throws him into space. And I'm just yep, that's the credibility our announcers have.
Ooh, next up, we've got Christian versus Chris Jericho in a surprisingly long-running, well-developed storyline. So they were buddies and tag team partners, and they made a bet that Jericho bet he could sleep with Trish before Christian could sleep with Lita, was the bet. And it was for a Canadian dollar, which I think is worth 10 cents at this time.
The wonderful thing about this is that it's sort of a spiritual successor to Kurt Angle, Triple H, Stephanie, where it kind of takes that place on the show where you very rarely get long-term romance soap opera storylines like this. And it was such a breath of fresh air. Yeah, it was supposed to involve Lita way more than it did, but she wound up not being on the shows anymore. I don't remember if she got hurt or what happened.
I think was this when she has her neck problems?
I think it is. So it was supposed to be revolve around both her and Trish, but instead so Christian kind of drops out of it for a couple months before they reintroduce him as just the dickhead best friend.
Yeah. And I feel they had tried a few of these in that they were trying Jeff Hardy and Trish together, and Jeff Hardy can't do that. They had tried a few of these that had not taken off. This is the first one in a while that actually works.
And I think Jericho really wanted liked the idea of trying acting. Yeah. So they go for it with this. And I'm going to be honest, there are some surprisingly genuine sweet moments during this storyline. During the period where Jericho and Trish are falling in love, I'm not going to say it's believable per se, because it's
for
still
wrestling.
It's a little
You know?
awkward and stiff, but like it's really good TV. Like I remember turning on to Raw, and that's the segment I wanted to watch, is to see what happened with Jericho and Trish this week. And then, of course, it's the She's All That story. So Trish finds out about the bet, and she rejects Jericho, but now he's serious about her, so he's desperate to get her back. And
Bischoff books Christian against Trish in a match, and Christian is super sleazy and like tries to extort Trish to sleep with him, and she refuses, and then Christian beats the shit out of her.
just like the stiffest any man has beaten up a woman on WWE TV maybe ever. Like he hits her with a clothesline that like would have done Stan Hansen proud.
Yeah. A great segment.
This is when Christian becomes a star. Like through the summer and stuff, like he's cut his hair, he's got his look, he's
bulked up, he's gotten in better shape, yeah.
He's become
stopped wearing the shirt or the singlet as part of his gear. Like, yeah, he's Captain Charisma now.
I said at WrestleMania 18 that Christian had the worst look that any wrestler has ever had. Like he
didn't belong on TV.
He didn't. Like I understand
that was the Blue Dot era.
I understand what Vince said that about him.
We got to put a blue dot to cover that disgusting face.
But they cut his hair and put him in this gear. All of a sudden, it's like, oh, okay. Like there's something here, and he finds himself as this unbelievably just self-obsessed douchebag.
Yeah.
And like he's like telling Jericho, like,
smarm. He's perfect.
She's breaking up our friendship, man. You can't let her come between us. But then in the background, he's
Stifler
from
American Pie. Like he's Sean William Scott. He even kind of looks like him.
Actually, yeah, that's dead the fuck on. And so we get to this match because after he beats the shit out of Trish, like they have that segment where like Jericho comes out and he's not supposed to, and like he comes out in like his street clothes, and I don't think we'd ever seen Jericho in street clothes before.
No, he'd always worn like his gear and like the obnoxious shirts.
And like he comes out and he's dead fucking serious, and like that's a great segment.
Christian is out first. Unfortunately, he's got some really like lame generic music here. But I love the white tights he's wearing here. These looked awesome.
He looks awesome here. Yeah. Like he was one of those people who, you know how about half the wrestlers wear like thongs under their tights so you don't see their underwear?
Yeah.
He's why, because he wears the underwear and you can see the outlines of it, and it's for some reason something I can't stop staring at whenever he's in the ring.
It's oddly off-putting.
Yeah, it's just like, that's weird. Put a thong on, man. Have some self-respect.
Jericho is out second. He hits a back suplex. He backdrops Christian over the top to the floor. He nearly gets the walls of Jericho, but Christian gets to the ropes. Christian throws him over the top. Jericho gets back in. He goes for the walls again. Christian rakes his eyes. Jericho drops Christian into the ropes, hits him with the boss man straddle, then an enziguri. Jericho hits a bulldog. Christian gets his knees up on the lion salt. Christian turns the tide with a reverse DDT, but Jericho comes back with a sleeper slam. Jericho sets up for a crossbody. Christian blocks it and throws him off the top. Christian follows up with a crossbody. Jericho rolls through it for a 2 count. Now Trish comes down the aisle and things are about to get interesting.
When you watched the show originally, did you have any idea that this was going to happen?
None whatsoever.
Me either. I genuinely thought that this was all building up towards the happy ending, and Jericho and Trish were going to be together. Like it. Again, this has been building
for
like.
What they did here was the right decision.
Like I guess you can't really just have Jericho and Trish be together.
Yeah. Where does that go?
And it's like your babyface should not have the hot girl that makes people hate him.
Jim Cornette would be so furious. He'd be calling the office every day. But
it's just, I don't know. Like,
it doesn't really make sense that Trish ends up with Christian, right?
No, it makes no sense. So, like, to say what happened in the rest of the match, Trish gets in the ring, and it looks like she's going to help, but instead she smacks Jericho in the face once, decides she didn't smack him hard enough, smacks him 10 times harder in the face.
And Christian rolls him up to get the pin.
And then they go out on stage and have the sloppiest makeout session I've ever seen in wrestling.
It is a lot of heat on Christian that the world's ugliest dude has the world's hottest woman with him.
Yes. So I guess the idea is just that Trish is, I don't know, a good little sub who just likes a nasty douchebag man.
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, it doesn't last long because she gets hurt and they just kind of drop it. Christian gets Tomko instead.
Here's the beautiful thing, though. Splitting them up immediately, but keeping them turned winds up being the most amazing thing for both of them.
Trish needed a heel turn. Like, she was played out as a babyface at this point. She had so much more attitude as a heel.
And she becomes shoot promo Trish, the biggest bitch to walk the earth.
Yeah.
And Christian becomes king douchebag of earth in such an endearing way that everyone starts falling in love
making him
with
a babyface. Yeah, a year from now, he's over as a face.
A year after that, he's the top star in another company.
Yeah.
That's fucking nuts.
We go backstage where Lillian Garcia interviews Mick Foley. Rock interrupts him. He cuts a funny promo. He just kind of takes us on a tour of the backstage area where he's like, look over there. And it's Hurricane talking to Rosie. And it's like, it's the Hamburglar and Grimace. So like the callback of him and Hurricane.
I remember that part. I did not remember that the Hurricane was holding a cheeseburger when he calls him the Hamburglar, and then he just gives it to Rosie and hides it.
God, I wish we could have gotten one more. How great would it have been to throw in like an actual Rock Hurricane segment on this show?
Oh, God, yeah. Just have like The Rock be doing the tour, and then suddenly the Hurricane jumps in. I think the pop from the crowd would have just lasted 30 seconds. Like,
yeah. He shouts out Jimmy Snuka and Don Morocco, who are hanging out backstage, and then he opens the curtain to show like they're right, the crowd is right there, and they're right about to come out.
I kind of feel like that's just how Mick and Rock should have come out for this match. It's just come straight through the crowd while The Rock talks. Yeah.
So yeah, next up is Evolution against the Rock and Sock Connection. Evolution come out first together. They look fucking awesome.
Let me be clear. I don't think I've ever enjoyed Ric Flair more in his whole career than I do during this period.
This match especially, he's so good.
Ric Flair's old ass steals this match from a movie star, a returning legend, the hottest up-and-coming heel, and a guy jacked to the gills. Old Ric Flair steals this shit and runs away.
It's brilliant.
But that's just this whole time. He's having so much fun.
Yeah.
He's in a
be
stable.
The dirty old heel.
The pressure's totally off of him. He can just have a good time. He can just like wrestle. He's teaching the kids of the next generation.
Working tag matches, the occasional TV singles match.
Yeah, he has his confidence back. His job is 1,000% secure. Like it's the best position you can be in. To be a revered legend, getting them paychecks just to have a good time. You know what I mean? Like that's the dream.
Foley is out next. He's in pretty good shape here. He definitely trained hard for this.
I think he's intentionally making himself look dumpy here, so it'll be more impressive when he comes back as Cactus Jack. Because he's still wearing like baggy sweatpants and the flannel.
Yeah.
And then when he comes back as Cactus Jack next month, it's like, did he lose 40 pounds in a month? What happened?
Rock is out second. I don't feel like this is his best look. The goatee.
Is horrible.
So trashy. He's slimmed down a lot here. He's not as muscular as he had been.
Somebody should assault him with a pair of scissors and get that goatee off of his face. It looks like literally the movie, like Bizarro version of The Rock, where it's just The Rock with a goatee, so you know he's the bad one. That's what this is. He's not a man who
last time we'd ever see him with hair.
Yeah, actually, yeah, you're right, it is. But like he's so clearly into movie star Rock now. Like his skin's super good, and he's like really slimmed down and like good like suit wearing shape. And like he's probably the most athletic here that he's probably been since 2000. Like he's in that like athlete shape.
Yeah, he's not like a big bulky wrestler anymore, and it's before he gets silly jacked later in the 2000s.
It always drove me crazy though, because like he could be like, all right, I'm in a movie and I'm jacked to shit. Oh, I'm wrestling, and then he just slim all the way down. Like, how can you do that? How does your body work like that, right? You can just go from like Olympic style sprinter body to like Mr. Olympia jet. I'm sure it's steroids, but that's not the point. Like, it's incredible.
This is Rock's last match until 2011, and he will only make a few sparing appearances on WWE TV after this until his return.
I can't wait till we get to that WrestleMania. So much to talk about with
those couple WrestleManias are. I mean, I feel like we're saying this every week. I mean, WrestleMania it gets big, and other than there's one or two misses in this era, but it's just kind of big for a long time after this.
Yeah. Like when he comes back, pretty much everyone from the Attitude Era, I don't want to say prostitutes themselves, but they dilute their legacy by coming back too much. Like Austin does that, Foley does that. Like after a while, you don't care when you see him. You hear they're going to be on Raw, you're like, whatever.
It was a game changer when he showed up.
Yeah, The Rock was the only guy where it was like, oh, fuck. Really?
Yeah. Him? I mean, it still is. Like, it's still something that's guaranteed to get me to tune in if he's showing up.
Yep. And, like, Brock was the same way, too. Just, like, guys who, like, walked away and did not come back.
Rock and Foley dominate. They clear out the ring. Foley and Orton both tag in, and Foley kicks Orton's ass as the crowd goes crazy. Flair and Rock get into the ring, and they proceed to do some really fun stuff.
God, Ric Flair so badly. Like, there's also, you have to remember the subtext of all of this, which is that Ric Flair and Mick Foley hate each other in real life. Yeah. So anytime that they're interacting, they're laying that shit in.
Yeah. Whereas, like, Rock is having the time of his life getting to work with Flair.
And he's like, I think he wrestled a singles match with Flair during his, like, but, like.
When was that? That must have been 2002.
Yeah,
it was when he was the champ. It was in the summer when he was the champion.
When he was just taking off his dream matches, yeah.
Yeah.
But that was when Flair was like a babyface, I think.
Yeah, he was still a face at that point.
So he's having so much fun wrestling Nate here. Like they're just living it up.
The moment of the match is
God.
When Flair mocks the people's elbow and does it to Rock.
Yeah, literally, Batista does his spine buster, and then Ric Flair shoves him out of the way and says, wait. I'm going to do the people. He, like, simulates a fake elbow pad because he doesn't have one.
Isn't there?
He goes to run the ropes, but it takes him, like, 8 minutes because he has to do his strut the whole time.
He does the strut. Yeah.
He gets there, Rock kips up, boom, DDT.
Ass, and then hits him with the proper people's elbow, and he does the Flair strut.
God, that's just such a good, amazing moment.
Rock hits the rock bottom on Orton, but Flair breaks up the pin. Batista hits the Batista bomb on Rock. Orton eventually makes the cover, but Rock kicks out. Rock manages to tag in Foley, who comes in hot. Foley hits the double arm DDT on Orton. He pulls out the sock, but Orton catches him with the RKO for the pin. Huge win for Orton in Evolution here.
It's really funny because this is such a weirdly constructed match. It's a
kind of a comedy. It's like half a comedy match and half super serious.
Yeah, whenever Foley's in, it's dead serious, and whenever Rock's in,
I should note Foley hated this match.
Yes, Foley felt like this was
one of his books. He thought this was like one of the biggest disappointments of his career, and I can see where he's coming from.
Because he knew that the match that he should have been having is the one he has next month.
Yeah, like he wanted to do his super epic, bloody match, and instead, again, it's kind of half comedy, half serious, and it gets a little weird. But I had a ton of fun watching this.
It's so fun. Like it's not a match that you want to like attribute a rating to. Like it's not a classic or anything. It was amazing to learn that it went 17 minutes because it feels like it's 7 minutes long. Like it's just a good time ride. And this show needed some stuff like that. Like this show, many of the matches on this show are dead serious and they're super long matches. This show just needed some fun, and that's what this was. And it didn't wind up taking away from the Backlash match. Like that was just as good as you ever could have hoped it would have been. And I think it's remembered more than it would have been because it was on its own, you know?
Yeah. They do a video package recapping the Hall of Fame ceremony from the previous night. Highlights include Jesse Ventura saying maybe we should put a wrestler in the White House in 2008, teasing a presidential run that never happened. And
he gets a standing
Bobby,
ovation for that.
not that crazy that he could have run. He couldn't. The problem is he couldn't have come up. He never would have come up with the money to pull it off.
Not without asking Papa Vince, and he never would have done that.
And as we mentioned earlier, Bobby Heenan saying his only regret is he wishes Monsoon could be there with him.
Another highlight for me was Triple H completely fanboying out by cutting Billy Graham's promo to Billy Graham.
Yeah. Billy Graham does not get the credit he deserves because a lot of Hulk Hogan's stuff was based on Billy Graham, and then you just start listing off all the wrestlers who consider Billy Graham to be one of their biggest influences. It's like, well, obviously Scott Steiner and Triple H, and there's a bunch more.
Let's be clear. If you're listing off the biggest stars in the industry from the past 50 years, you can trace all of them to three men. You can trace them to Lou Thez, you can trace them to Billy Graham, or you can trace them to Gorgeous George / Buddy Rogers. There are only three types of top wrestlers.
There really are. There's the grappler, there's the pretty boy, and there's the muscle man.
That's it. That's all the three. And Billy Graham does not get enough credit.
No, Billy Graham's promos are unbelievable. It's so much, just a different world from what everybody else is doing.
And Ric Flair just fucking stole that shit. His whole limousine ride and jet flying is a direct ripoff. Of course, Billy Graham's is a ripoff of Muhammad Ali, but everyone ripped off Muhammad Ali.
I lift metal plates, I eat T-bone steaks, how much more of me can you take?
And they wore this crazy tie-dye and these wacky hats.
Super jacked. He's in unbelievable shape. One of the best bodies ever in wrestling.
Because there had been bodybuilders in wrestling before, but they were always straight men. They were just hey, look how great this guy's body was. This was somebody being a Buddy Rogers character while having the best body in the business. And nobody had done that before.
Not an accident that he was the heel champion who got super over as a babyface, especially in New York.
Yeah, if his body hadn't failed him, he would have been over for a lot longer, too.
Yeah. And unfortunately, we had to go from him as champion to Bob Backlund.
Who, if you recall back through your archives, I personally feel is the worst world champion in WWE history. Yes, I'm including all of them.
It feels like they edited something out here.
I don't know what it was.
There's a cut, and then we go to Tony Chimmel making an announcement in the ring. I don't know. Maybe it was an ad for a DVD or something.
Probably.
Then we've got a Playboy evening gown match as Sable and Tori Wilson team up against Miss Jackie and Stacy Keibler.
Okay, look. We've got to talk about the fact that Sable is back.
Yeah.
Of all the people
who have about this.
Ever left.
Here's the hilarious thing. They bring her back after she sued the company for sexual harassment, and the thing they do with her is they make her Vince's mistress on screen.
Not
How
only
stupid is this company?
They bring her back and immediately just put her in a series of MILF porn segments.
Yeah.
But she winds up getting the ultimate revenge. If you see this as a whole soap opera storyline, she comes back, she woos the top star in the company and convinces him to quit.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you imagine that she does that on purpose, wow, what a move.
Sabotages the company from within, and on screen she wins her feud with Stephanie.
Yeah.
Culminating in one of the worst and grossest and weirdest matches ever in wrestling, where Vince wrestles Stephanie and beats her up for 10 minutes.
Also, it must be said that the Sable and Tori thing, I believe at one point Sable and Tori's combined issue of Playboy was the best-selling Playboy of all time.
Yeah.
Believe me when I say, this was a successful comeback. It just, man, I found it really funny, too, in this match, where they were they're fighting over Stacy and Miss Jackie thought they should have been in Playboy. If Stacy Keibler had wanted to be in Playboy...
Yeah, I'm sure they offered her a blank check, and she never did it.
It's the same way that they chased Maria for 5 years before she finally agreed to do it.
So it's an evening gown match. It's supposed to be you win by getting your dress ripped off I think. Sable says that she and Tori would prefer to wrestle with their dresses off. So they take their dresses off, and Stacy does too. Jackie refuses to. So all the women team up and strip her. And then they actually proceed to have like a respectable wrestling match for 2 minutes.
They do like chain wrestling in their underwear. I was not prepared for that.
No, I was ready for this to just be embarrassing, like softcore porn. But yeah, actually they did some decent stuff. And then Tori pins Jackie with a roll up.
I always kind of felt for Tori Wilson in this era, like Trish worked so hard to get out of the view of just being hot, and she succeeded in that eventually. Like Tori just could never get, like she clearly wanted to do other stuff, other storylines, like angles.
The little matches I see her have are actually pretty good.
Yeah, she just could never get past the fact that she was just so goddamn gorgeous that they just wanted to see her take her clothes off and nothing else.
Yeah.
It's a shame. Yeah.
She's still looks amazing.
She looks like she did then.
Yeah, she
She's
has not
skinnier.
aged at all somehow.
It's ridiculous.
We go backstage to Benoit and Guerrero in the locker room. Eddie says that Benoit's like family to him and he's proud of him whether he wins or loses tonight. Benoit says losing isn't an option. Guerrero's like, oh, well, you know, Holmes, nobody actually believes you're going to win tonight. And that fires Benoit up. He says he believes in himself and that's all he needs tonight.
This is not...
Benoit's trying.
Eddie Guerrero delivers a 5-star promo here. He's like... subtle. He's like eyeing Benoit. He knows that he's working him up. The grin on his face when Benoit is like yelling at him because he knows he's fired him up. That's all masterful. But we're several years removed from when Benoit was an actual liability on promos. Like the promo he cut on Raven, which we covered on a past Lawcast. Which is the worst promo I've ever heard delivered ever.
Truly just incomprehensible word salad.
And it's like, it's not like you want to play 21. Like, it's not like somebody
fucked up. He's drunk or anything.
He's just been given lines and cannot deliver them. So he's better than that. Because he's realized that what he can do is just look directly at the person he's talking to, get right up in their face, and just yell it really loud. And at least it comes off as part of his character. But it's still not good.
Next up, we have the disastrous Cruiserweight Open. So this is like an 11-man match. The rules are 2 guys start in the ring, everyone else just surrounds the ring, and each time someone is eliminated, a new entrant comes in. Chavo, as the champion, gets to enter the match last, so everybody is just fighting for the opportunity to face him.
Here's the problem. Is this doesn't need to exist. There's no reason for this to exist.
Just to get everybody on the card.
But I can fix it in one sentence. Like, this is a legendarily shitty match. When people talk about the show, this is like the first thing they bring up after Goldberg and Lesnar, of being just like, this didn't need to happen. It sucked. It ruined Ultimo Dragon. Like, he botches on his way to the ring, which they cut out of the network, by the way. Yeah. They don't show that part.
Yeah, Dragon gets a pop, and then he, like, slips on his cape.
And, like, he's dead in the water from then on.
I mean, this run just did not work out. He didn't have it anymore. Yeah, he's just physically not there anymore.
He suffered such a serious injury that he was basically out of the ring for, like, 4 years.
Yeah, that's the thing I'm thinking about. He's done in WCW after, like, mid-98, and then he comes back in 03.
Yeah, he goes back to Japan, and he does Torimon, and he's just like... He just trains the new generation of workers, which ironically includes Okada. And then they offer him a bunch of money just to lend credibility to this new cruiserweight division. So he comes, but he's not healthy or ready for this. No. He just takes their money and runs.
I mean, even like in his prime, he wasn't really a big high flyer. He worked a different kind of style, and it was good. But I don't think they knew what they were getting. I think they thought they were getting a high flyer.
There really weren't a lot of high flyers left in the world at this point, at least not that they would assign
it's
or
limited.
Knew about.
Yeah,
like, so when you
look at these participants, not many. These guys are mostly technical guys. So you've got Chavo, Nunzio, Jamie Noble, Tajiri, Akio. No Sakota. He must be hurt.
I don't know that he was a cruiserweight, was he? He's a bigger dude.
I don't remember who those guys were.
Yeah, he's kind of a big guy. But like the funniest part to me is that this is if you add the Hurricane into it and remove Tajiri, the WCW Cruiserweight division from 2000.
Yes. Funaki, Shannon Moore, Ultimo Dragon, Billy Kidman, who has some hilariously ill-fitting entrance music.
Yes, you can
It's like a
run if you
DMX
want
song.
to, but you can't hide.
Why is Billy Kid? It's sort of like AJ Styles' theme, which is awesome, but like doesn't really fit him.
Well, that's because it was for the Briscoe brothers.
Yeah.
And yeah, it does not necessarily fit. Billy Kidman has also gained about 70 pounds of pure muscle. And
Yeah.
let's
He
just
started killing people with his shooting star press.
here's the thing. When he was a skinny stick figure, he still barely hit that thing. When he weighs 250 pounds of brick muscle and he tries to get rotation, he does not succeed. Here, basically it turns into like a shooting star headbutt, and it like literally almost kills multiple people.
Because they make it the storyline that like it's too dangerous and he can't do it anymore.
Like, even the ones he hits, he's literally going sideways. Like, it's horrifying. Stop letting him do it.
Ray is out last. He's dressed as the Flash. Again, I always look forward to these Rey Mysterio WrestleMania outfits.
Here's the thing, too, is the feud is between Chavo and Ray. They've been feuding for, like, since they had their match at No Way Out, which was an unbelievable match. I love that.
Chavo beat him for the title.
And so they're supposed to have their return match here, but they just add all these other guys into it. You can fix this match with one suggestion. Just have this be, Ray, you've got to beat all 8 of these fuckers to get to me. That's it. And then just do everything exactly the same.
I think the crowd would have gone wild for Ray beating each of these guys in a row.
And the crowd does not care about any of these other guys at all. They only care about Ray. And Ray comes in second to last.
Yeah. So it's 10 guys, elimination rules, and we've got like 10 minutes for this whole match. So you know this is going to be a disaster.
And it's not like one of those like TNA style crash course matches, because not a lot of these guys do anything cool. So like the only big spot is really Billy Kidman trying to do a springboard shooting star to the outside and almost dying.
So Shannon Moore misses a corkscrew moonsault, and Dragon pins him with the Acai DDT after about a minute. Noble's in next. He gets Dragon in a submission, and Dragon taps. Funaki comes in, hits a crossbody. Noble rolls through into a cradle and pins him in like 5 seconds.
Yep. This could have just been Ray doing all of this.
Nunzio comes in. Noble hits him with a crossbody out to the floor, and Nunzio gets counted out. Kidman comes in as the crowd is turning on this match. Noble gets pulled off the apron by Nunzio. Kidman hits this is insane, springboard shooting star press out to the floor, and somehow nobody dies.
Like, this is a good idea for a spot, but he gets no lift whatsoever.
I reject the notion that this is a good idea in any circumstance.
It's a cool idea. It's not a
Think of how dangerous a shooting star press is when you're just dropping into the ring, and now you have to shift the rotation to hit it properly when you're dropping like an extra 5 feet to the floor.
And here's the problem with Billy Kidman's shooting star. The biggest problem is he can't jump. Like, he doesn't get air at all. So that's why he's got to like force his rotation. That's why he looks kind of goofy when he does it, because he's like
kind of goes sideways
to get around. And he goes sideways to get more time. Well, here he springboards. I've never seen anyone get less air off of a springboard in my life. He jumps and just goes straight. He does not go up at all. So he just like, by the time he gets around to get caught, like they catch him in like the powerbomb position because his head's still down towards the ground. It's horrifically dangerous. And he's not aimed correctly. So he easily could have gone into the barricade. Like, this was not good.
He also could have bit it on the floor, Lesnar style.
Damn right. I mean, he did have those jacked neck muscles, though. He probably would have been fine.
Back in the ring, Kidman hits a sky high off the top rope to get the pin. Mysterio finally comes in. He hits the seated senton, but Kidman catches him with a drop kick. Mysterio comes back with a drop kick that sends Mysterio to the floor. Akio hits Mysterio with a hangman. Kidman hits a sky high, but Mysterio kicks out. Mysterio then hits a sunset flip powerbomb off the top rope and pins Kidman. Tajiri comes in. He gets Mysterio in the tarantula. He goes for the handspring elbow, but Mysterio hits him with a drop kick, and then the 619. Tajiri hits a kick. He goes for the mist, but Mysterio ducks it. The mist hit Akio. Mysterio rolls up Tajiri and pins him. Tajiri hits a cheap shot on the way out by hitting Mysterio with the buzzsaw kick. Akio can't wrestle because he got hit with the mist, so we're down to just Chavo and Ray.
And see, okay, so if Ray starts this match and he beats all of those people in the wave that we just described, which is totally reasonable because half the eliminations aren't even like pinfalls.
Yeah.
And they're like, so he beats all of them, and now it's him and Chavo, and he's staring down Chavo, and then he gets sucker punched, and Chavo gets in. So much heat on that, so much momentum for Ray, and now you can just do the rest of this exactly the same.
Mysterio takes out Chavo Classic with a front flip senton. He jumped over the referee to do that. That was great.
That is so cool.
He goes for Hurricane Rana. Chavo gets an assist from Chavo Sr. to sit down, and he gets the pin. I mean, just a horrible match. Terrible execution.
Yeah, like Ray emerges from this unscathed, as he does from everything, because he's lightning in a bottle. Chavo is a great heel, and his act with Chavo Classic is good. It doesn't really have anywhere to go after Ray, because this division sucks, but like I said, it would have been such an easy fix just to focus on the actual feud here. Instead, they just try to do an exhibition, and what they wind up doing is showing you that the Cruiserweight division is worthless and pointless.
This show really needed a battle royal on Heat to just give all these guys a match. Like, all the tag division guys, all the Cruiserweight division guys. Like, just put them in the battle royal to get them on the show.
Yep.
Thank God. It took them until WrestleMania 30 to realize they needed to do a battle royal every year. That's insane.
And it's just such a smart idea. And like now it's just like, oh, hey, yeah, it's the annual, oh, that guy's still in this company.
Yeah. And it's, I don't know. I mean, it's not, I can't tell you who won it last year.
Corbin won it 2 years ago?
That was all the way back in 2016. Corbin won it.
Jesus Christ, I have no idea.
Yeah,
I know Cesaro won one, Big Show won one, Corbin
didn't
won one.
Mojo win? Mojo won the one with Rob Gronkowski.
Oh, so yeah, that's the end of that.
That was a couple years ago.
That's the end of credibility.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you who won the last couple. Next up, we've got a video package for Goldberg versus Brock Lesnar, which is perhaps the strangest match we will see tonight. So Goldberg has been in the company for like exactly a year. He debuted the night after WrestleMania 19, made a great debut, speared The Rock, and that was pretty much it as far as highlights from this run for him. Can we even count the mistakes they made with him?
God. The idea that him and Triple H was some kind of dream match was a mistake from the beginning because they had nothing in common. They had no
having
chemistry.
To wrestle chubby, puffy Triple H who's injured and wearing bike shorts in the ring.
Having him just like wrestle random singles matches on Raw against random people. Like some of those were cool. Like he actually has a great match with Mark Henry that kind of puts Mark Henry back on the map.
No, but I mean, that was how he got over in WCW, was just squashing jabronis and doing like interesting short matches with guys like Jerry Flynn and Ming and whoever else they could throw at him. I do think it is a little hard. What are you going to do with him? I mean, he's not a good promo. Like I think they definitely made a mistake having him talk too much.
I mean, I would just have him smash through people for a while. The feud with Jericho was a very smart idea. That goes well.
Yeah, except the crowd turns on him and boos his ass.
Well, the best part about that is that brings back to light the story of, hey, remember how Goldberg tried to fight Jericho and Jericho choked his ass out?
That had just happened. That happened here in WWE.
Oh, it did? I thought it happened in WCW.
Yeah, maybe I'm misremembering it.
I think they just relitigated it because I think like Goldberg like goes up to him in the locker room and just like, hey, remember last time? You think you can catch me again? And Jericho was just like, yeah, dude, I can. But like Jericho does business, and it's just like, hey, let's just do the match. We're professionals.
Oh, yeah, that was back in WCW. It was, yeah, but they did, I mean, kind of acknowledge it on screen.
Yeah, it's just funny to me but like, where do you go? What do you do?
Yeah, I mean, I guess just have him run through people, put the belt on him, and then have somebody beat him. It is more complicated than I think, because when you think about his WCW run, he got super over squashing guys, and then his last couple of years in WCW sucked because they couldn't figure out what to do with him.
Nobody could ever figure out what to do with him until now. WWE has recently figured out what to do with him is bring him in for 3-month spurts and then take him off TV.
And by the time this airs, he may well have had some debacle match with Bray Wyatt in Saudi Arabia. So we'll see if they still know what to do with him.
Yeah, let's.
So I mean, Goldberg has not had the best run. One other highlight. When Rodney Mack is doing his white boy challenge, and each week he brings out some jobber and beats their ass. And then they're at Madison Square Garden for Raw, and he does the white boy challenge, and it's Goldberg who answers it. And Rodney Mack like runs up the ramp to jump him as he's coming through the curtain, and Goldberg spears him through the pyro.
A victory for white supremacists everywhere, but a very cool segment nonetheless.
And then they go to SummerSlam for an Elimination Chamber match where Goldberg dominates, and he eliminates everybody. And then fucking Triple H beats him with a sledgehammer shot.
I remember
so
the anger.
Oh,
the visceral. Like, people didn't like Goldberg. They didn't want him to win. But it was just generally agreed that that's who was finally going to beat Triple H. And then when even Goldberg didn't beat him, everyone just was just like, fuck this.
Like, yeah, and then he did win the title at Unforgiven the next month, but like the air had come out of his sails by that point. Like, once Goldberg loses, there's really nowhere to go.
And like, they so easily could have put Goldberg over in the Elimination Chamber. Yeah. Triple H had torn his groin.
Yeah, we should mention how shitty Triple H looks at that point. Like, as we've mentioned, his physique was not doing the best anyway. Like, he's got a torn groin muscle. He's wrestling in bike shorts to give him support and like cover more of his body because he looks gross.
And like, kudos to him for wrestling such a difficult match with literally a torn groin muscle, which is about.
He doesn't do anything in the match. Is the thing is like, yeah, exactly. He's the last guy in, and as soon as his chamber opens, Shawn Michaels nails him with the super kick, and he goes to sleep for like 10 minutes, and then he just gets up and like wrestles Goldberg for 2 minutes and pins him with the sledgehammer shot. It would have made so much sense for that just to be where he lost the belt. Like, Goldberg was on fire that night. The crowd was into him.
Like, if he just walks in, talks some shit, eats a spear, jackhammer, end, that's great. And then you can just have Triple H screw him out of it the next month. But like, that's where you put it on Goldberg. Instead, we got a triple threat with Kane to look forward to.
Yeah, where Triple H got to pin him for some reason instead of Kane. Kane was useless by that point. So Goldberg is coming to the end of his run. The one thing he's got left is the dream match against Lesnar, and he can put Lesnar over on his way out the door. But there's a complication, because Brock Lesnar's leaving too.
Yeah, so what happens is, sometime around, I want to say the end of January, something happens and Lesnar just starts telling people, I fucking hate this. He's sick of the travel. He's sick of all the runaround he has to do. He's sick of the pressure. He just doesn't want to be a wrestler anymore. It was never his dream to begin with. We all understand that.
Something
it was just
to do to make money.
It was a business thing for him. He had always dreamed of being a pro football player.
Which is odd since he didn't even play football in college.
And I assume somebody had to have gotten in his ear and been like, hey, man, I think you could make a team if you tried out. And like, it's such a bizarre thing.
Yeah.
That he's willing to throw this away.
I just remember it's like 2 weeks or 10 days before this show that kind of makes it into the newsletters and then, proceeds to the sites, and just reading that and like not being able to wrap my head around the idea that Brock Lesnar was leaving. Like, this guy is the man. Like, the next 10 WrestleManias are going to be built around Brock Lesnar if he stays. Like,
imagine Hulk Hogan in like 1987 after WrestleMania 3, okay? And he's just like, yeah, you know what, brother? I've had a good run. I'm going to go play with my rock band for the next couple of years.
Let's go play bass in Tampa. Yeah, he didn't like life on the road. Like, he tried stuff. He bought a private plane so he didn't have to like deal with commercial air travel. Didn't work. I think he asked them for a lesser schedule. They weren't willing to accommodate that, and he just got sick of it. He was drinking all the time. Like, you can tell he's not a real social guy. He's never going to be one of the boys. I'm sure there has to be a ton of resentment from the other guys. Like, you imagine being like somebody like Hardcore Holly, who's been in wrestling for 15 years, and Lesnar's been in the business 15 minutes, and he's making money and in a better spot than you will ever be in.
Right. And that makes total sense. And we also know that Brock Lesnar doesn't give a shit about other people at all. Like, when you've gone through your entire life being the baddest man that you will ever meet, you just don't have to care. He's from a farm in the middle of Minnesota. Like, he doesn't think about priorities the same way, right? So, like, he's like, I already got millions of dollars, and I'm just not having fun, so, like, fuck this, I'm out.
Yeah. So, yeah, he decides he wants to go play football. So he, works it out with WWE that he's going to get his release. He agrees to a ridiculous non-compete agreement. It was like, for 7 years, the remainder of his contract, he wasn't going to be able to wrestle or box or do MMA or like maybe even do any of those things in a movie. It was so broad anywhere in the world. Like,
it's actually pretty stunning. Like, he does everything right. Like, the hate that Lesnar got for this is off the charts. Like, it's some of the most hate that anyone in the business has ever gotten, and most of it's just because people were predisposed to hate Brock Lesnar.
Yeah, of course.
But he does it in as much as you can do this the right way. He basically gives his 2-week
Guerrero like a motherfucker at No Way Out.
Yeah, he's just like, pick who you want me to put over. I'll put him over like God. You want to have Austin stun me on my last match? Do it. Like, I don't care. Like, whatever you want to do. It's not that he was bad to the company. It was just that he wanted out. And he's just gave him his 2-week notice, basically. And it's just like, do whatever you want, and I'm out. And then I'll never wrestle again because fuck wrestling, it sucks. And we're good.
So, I mean, he goes off. He tries to play in the NFL. The Vikings sign him. He's in camp there. He actually plays pretty well. Like, I watched all those preseason games, to the extent that I could because I wanted to see him. And, he very much held his own. He was one of the last players cut. They wanted to send him to NFL Europe, but he didn't want to go because he doesn't like traveling. He sure as shit doesn't want to go live in Germany for 6 months.
If he had actually committed himself to this for another year, he certainly would have made it.
He would have played.
Like, in the preseason, you can see him he bum rushing offensive guards, and like they were like, "What the fuck do I do with this?" Yeah,
he ran the 40 in 4.65 seconds or something, weighing 285 pounds. I think he did 30 reps at 225 on the bench. Like, he's an absurd athlete.
And he was not in shape. He was not in football shape.
Not to play
football. Very different from wrestling.
He was going to need to change his body. He was going to need to put some weight on, get up to 300 pounds.
And that's the thing, is that when you're a defensive tackle, is what he actually was, you need to have the bulk to push people around.
Yeah, instead he was just pushing him around with 300-pound linemen at the same time.
Instead, he was just pushing him around with brute-ass strength. If he had actually shaped his body, he would have been unstoppable.
Wrestlers tend to make good linemen because they understand leverage and how to use their body to get low.
His whole especially with his amateur wrestling background, he was just wrapping people up. He had potential. He just didn't have the patience.
No. I mean,
little did he know that he was born to do something else.
Yeah, I mean, so he ends up suing to get out of the non-compete agreement, and he succeeds because non-compete agreements have to be reasonable. This is ill-defined, but reasonable in their duration and the amount of geography they cover, and how broad they can be. no judge is going to uphold like a 7-year non-compete agreement that you can't work anywhere in the world, like in your line of business.
Yeah.
So with his legal resources, he was able to beat WWE in court and get out of the non-compete agreement. And they thought he was going to come back in like 2006, 2007. Like, I think they had him. And then I don't know what happened. It just
he goes to Japan.
Did you get the Japan offer first?
Yeah, he gets the offer from New Japan. They bring him in.
Like $50,000 a match they're supposed to pay him.
Yes.
And it turns out he doesn't draw at all.
The whole idea is that he's supposed to put over Nakamura. He refuses to put over Nakamura. They try to do like they put the belt on him right away because he insists on that. And then he's supposed to put over Tanahashi and he's just like, nah. And he just leaves.
Yeah, just fucks off with the belt. And then Kurt Angle beats him for it?
Not really.
Yeah, I know.
Kurt Angle winds up winning another version of that belt in another company, and then they have a match with both belts, but neither one's actually the current real belt. They do not have a New Japan title match. Let me put it that way.
Okay. And yeah, he goes to UFC, wins the world heavyweight title in like his second or third fight and ends up becoming one of their biggest stars, one of their biggest draws, and as we know, will eventually make his way back to WWE, but that'll be a story for another WrestleMania podcast.
Yeah, he just so happens to get to UFC right after like the Ultimate Fighter has made UFC a household name, and then he becomes the star that puts them on the map in the mainstream.
Draws in all these wrestling fans to watch MMA.
And like he rides that wave and becomes like a household name himself. And then he comes back to wrestling and gets exactly what he wanted originally.
Yeah, part-time schedule.
I show up when I want, and you pay me out the ass.
Yeah, I show up, I do my segment, I drive to the airport, and I get on my private jet, and I fly home.
And let the record show, a lot of the reaction to this match, like the "you sold out" chants are a joke.
No, he's leaving millions of dollars. So is Goldberg. Like,
yes. Like, they just both want out. Like, it has nothing to do with the fans. Like, it has nothing to do with that.
No, it's just this life sucks. And, like, they have enough money that they don't need to do it anymore.
And I've always found Lesnar refreshing in the way that he's never been anything but clear with what he wants from the wrestling business. He's a mercenary.
Yeah.
Like, if you want me to do stuff for you, give me lots of money and what I want, and then I'll do that stuff.
You pay him enough money, he'd lose every match.
Yeah. Oh, and like whenever you ask him to do like, hey, I want you to put over this guy. Okay.
Yeah. Sells for guys half his size.
He loves that. Like you can tell that Brock Lesnar likes doing wrestling matches. He has fun.
Yeah.
It's just that he doesn't want to be a professional wrestler.
No. He likes doing wrestling matches every once in a while. He doesn't like doing them every night and having to like, travel through airports and stay in hotels and all that shit.
Yeah. I mean, I don't hate Brock Lesnar for this. I didn't hate him at the time. I don't hate him now. And Goldberg, too. Like, Goldberg gets shit on all the time. Hey, man, at least Goldberg, he went through all of this garbage. They booked him into the ground. He has
Put
a
him
terrible
in wigs,
time.
Stupid segments with his cars and getting paint thrown on it. Just, yeah. Like,
but so
they couldn't have booked him worse if they were trying.
And literally by the end, but like he shows up and he does everything they ask him to do. Like he's a professional throughout the whole thing. Like he comes to this, he knows he's taken the job, or he beats Lesnar. But still, like,
that's the crazy thing here is, of course, this has been building all year to, of course, Brock Lesnar is gonna beat Goldberg, and they get there the day of, and they're like, well, both guys are leaving. I guess we should just put Goldberg over. Like he's the face. Why not? Fuck it. Like Goldberg, who everybody in this company hates. Like everybody hates Goldberg at this point. Like the executives hate him, the other wrestlers hate him. It's like, well, let's just have him win. Fuck it.
It doesn't matter because Austin's stunning both of them at the end anyway. But it's just so funny to me that they do that because that's going to lead to a big business opportunity for them 15 years later.
Yeah. Oh, I can hear all about that in our Survivor Series 2016 episode, which I think is, an under the radar, one of my favorite episodes we've ever done.
Agreed. So so now we can find. Well, we haven't even talked about the backstory of the fucking match.
Okay, so Goldberg comes into the Royal Rumble, number 30, kicks everybody's asses. But earlier in the night, he'd had a confrontation backstage with Lesnar. Lesnar shows up, attacks him, throws him out of the match.
I think most of
Then
us thought that Goldberg was going to win that match too, because
yeah,
we all kind of assumed it was going to be
Lesnar for the
Goldberg
title.
Lesnar for the title. Yeah.
That's totally reasonable. Like, that's your big match. Have the world title be involved in that. But they go a different direction. It all ends up being pretty good.
Yeah, it sure
Um,
does.
so then on Raw, Austin gives Goldberg a front row ticket to No Way Out and tells him, don't do anything I wouldn't do. Goldberg shows up to No Way Out. You can hear all about this on our No Way Out 2004 episode, and we also go more in depth on the story of Lesnar leaving the company. Lesnar shows up, spears Brock during his match against Eddie Guerrero, helps Guerrero get the win, costs Brock the world title. And then that's pretty much it as far as Goldberg and Lesnar interacting for this feud, because Goldberg is out of dates on his contract. And when they ask him to do some more, he politely declines and he goes off to shoot some movie, some Santa Claus movie.
Yeah. The Santa Claus horror movie. Yeah. But and that's not anything to hate on him for. He's out of fucking dates. He's not required to do extra for you after you fucked him over so hard.
Yeah. So instead, the feud is really Lesnar versus Austin. Lesnar steals Austin's ATV is the big thing.
Let me make this clear. The feud that unfolds over the next couple of weeks between Lesnar and Austin is 10 times hotter than the feud between Goldberg and Lesnar. They successfully build to a Lesnar-Austin match that I would have paid hot money to see.
Well, yeah, and I thought it was going to happen because Austin was bumping a ton here. He was taking F5s from Lesnar.
Yeah, there's a segment on the Go Home SmackDown, I think, where Austin comes down and the whole SmackDown roster has to defend Lesnar, and then they just walk out and leave Lesnar to Austin.
Brock. I love that. Yeah, Brock's like, come on, get him. Yeah, we should also note, this is the best version of Brock Lesnar's character. Dickhead, bully, jock Brock Lesnar. Is incredible.
He's the best and he knows it, but he's just such a child that he just can't stop poking people, and then he gets his comeuppance.
Band Brock Lesnar.
Yes. This is the spiritual predecessor to Boombox Brock Lesnar.
Brock dancing to MVP's music as he's coming out.
That's always the best Brock because you feel in your soul that that's the real Brock.
So yeah, mainly the feud is Austin versus Lesnar. And
if they had managed to talk Austin into making this a triple threat, I feel like this is all fixed. Yeah. Because the fans would have just cheered the shit out of Austin, and then Austin beats them both.
Those are not the two guys you want to get in the ring with when you got a bad neck.
That's a good point, because
their moves are all stuff that's going to fuck your neck and spine up. Yeah, if Austin, I feel like if Austin was going to wrestle again, it needed to be against Jericho or Triple H, Undertaker, just somebody who we could just kind of brawl with and didn't have a really high impact style.
What if they had put him in the handicap match and made it a 6-man?
I wouldn't have. I don't think I would have liked that. I think Austin's return match should have been. If he was ever going to do another match, it needed to be a singles match.
Yeah, and that's why he never did it, because
he didn't think he could put on the Steve Austin match.
I say he would have loved to have wrestled like Benoit, but he knows he couldn't have gone the way he wanted to.
How great would in WrestleMania 19, Brock is still a heel, and it's Austin's last match, and Austin's trying to beat him for the title, and he can't do it.
And then he walks away because he can't do it anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The road not taken. Okay, so the big twist to this match. Everybody in this arena knows that both these guys are out of here, which I do not think the company was expecting. This is the first time this ever happens in wrestling, where the fans are smarter than the bookers. Now,
Madison Square Garden has always been a smart building. This is not the first time that WWE's gotten a different reaction from the one they wanted. One of our favorite moments ever when Sid comes out at the Garden to face Michaels, and he's the hottest baby face in the world.
Big shit on Michaels.
So they probably expected something. But Austin comes out, and the fans love him. He gets big pop. Goldberg
riding
comes
the
out.
ATV, just guns it. It is so terrifying the speed he goes on that thing in
He like
such a
gets like
constrained space.
at one point I swear there's only one wheel on the ground, and I'm like,
Yeah,
Goldberg comes out, he gets booed to hell, but he doesn't care. He's a professional, he's here to do his job. Lesnar comes out. He gets booed and is visibly bothered by it.
yeah.
This whole match is just Lesnar getting freaked out.
You can tell they get in the ring and they both kind of freeze and like they don't know what to do.
Because like I don't know who they thought was gonna get. If they really thought like Goldberg was gonna get cheered here, what like they had to have been idiots if they
Goldberg
genuinely
had
thought.
not. I mean, he had really not been. I mean, he'd been outright booed in several of his big matches, and like he was never that over in WWE during this run.
And we're an MSG, so like they couldn't have thought. But it's when like the "You Sold Out" chants start and the "Na na 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 hey hey."
Apparently,
hey,
Shane
bye.
McMahon was like in the front row, off camera, like leading the crowd in the "You Sold Out" chant.
Are you serious?
Yes.
Oh, that is ridiculous. Oh my God, Shane.
The announcers do their best here. JR acknowledges the rumors that Lesnar is going to leave for the NFL and also the rumors that Goldberg is leaving, but they're just kind of quiet and like not really sure what to say.
And then the match is
The bell
so
rings, and they do nothing.
they stand there and like
Look at each other for literally several minutes. Like, I'm not kidding.
Goldberg like kind of circles. Like Goldberg's ready to get it started. Like Goldberg's shaken, but he's just like, yeah, just get it over with, man. Come on. Lesnar has no idea what to do.
No, I mean, I get the feeling Brock as the heel was probably good. I mean, this seems like a match they would have laid out move for move because it's
Right.
going to be high. It's short, it's high impact, and these are not ring generals. Like these are not two guys who are going to go in there and like call things in the ring. But Brock is the heel you would expect to take the lead in the match, and I think he kind of froze up and forgot what they were supposed to do.
He's paralyzed. He's staring out at the crowd for like minutes. He's just like looking around like what's happening.
Yeah, like what have I done?
I don't think he realized how people would view his decision. And it's let's just be clear.
It's fine because none of his fucking business what he does. It's his life. It's his body.
Yeah, it's unfair the way that these two are treated here. Like the na hey hey goodbye. Like okay, fine, whatever. Like
Some good fun.
especially for Goldberg, because fuck Goldberg, get him out of here. This has been a disaster. But Brock Lesnar wrestled a 5-star match 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, put over Eddie Guerrero, incredibly strong in one of the best moments in company history.
Like, you shouldn't want Brock Lesnar to go. It's not a good thing that he's leaving, but it's not his. Like, you don't need to be mad at him. But, like, I get it. Like, it's not rational. But, like, this has never happened to this scale. 18,000 people basically reading off Meltzer's dirt sheet report in the middle of the match is unprecedented.
So after several minutes, they finally lock up and they like jostle for position and then they just break clean.
And then Lesnar just goes right back to staring at the crowd.
Yeah. Like 5 minutes into this match, there has not been one offensive move. Their entire match, obviously their match at Survivor Series was 90 seconds long, but their match at WrestleMania, whatever it was like maybe 5 minutes long, and it was awesome.
Yeah. Like, this could have been awesome.
Just do that match. Just spear, jackhammer, F5. Just do all the big moves.
I think that was the plan. I think, but it's just...
Goldberg hits Lesnar with a press slam, which is amazing.
Yeah.
And
Goldberg
then
not given enough credit for how fucking strong he is.
he misses a spear and hits the ring post, and Lesnar sits on a chin lock for a while.
Again, just looking out, not paying attention to what's going on at all.
Lawler tries to explain the crowd reaction by saying that the crowd is split because it's Raw versus SmackDown.
Good job, Lawler. Great catch.
That's about 5 minutes too late. I would imagine somebody fed that to him.
I would love it if you were just sitting there the whole time and finally was like, oh, Raw versus SmackDown.
Goldberg recovers to hit a swinging neck breaker, then a spear. He covers after the spear, which is unusual. Usually he'd just go to the jackhammer. Lesnar kicks out. Then he pops up and hits the F5. He's slow to make the cover. Goldberg kicks out. Lesnar tries to spear Goldberg. He misses and hits the ring post. Goldberg hits the spear and the jackhammer for the pin. I mean, just an unbelievable disaster here. Like, it was fine once it got going, but like they got off to such a slow start. It was already too late.
There just wasn't anything here. This wasn't going to be good regardless. It's not. People refer to this as one of the all-time disasters, but they don't really mean it. Like this, it's just a noteworthy talking point that this is a thing that happened. This is the moment. I think it's the moment where the audiences at home realize the potential of the audience to interfere in a match and control it. Because then this starts happening at other arenas outside of Madison Square Garden. It becomes like a thing. And that grows all the way to the point now where like the people in the crowds and the people on Twitter literally controls what happens on your TV screen.
Yeah.
But like at this point, they didn't have that control. And throughout the year of them giving like standing ovations to Benoit and now this, it's sort of like the crowds realize the potential for what they can do. And they wind up using it in the year to come. Like they turn Orton face way too fast because their reactions to Orton. Like it's the company starts listening. They probably shouldn't.
Sometimes too much.
Yeah. But like this is a hallmark moment in wrestling history where the smart crowd realizes their power and flexes it.
After the match, Austin stuns Lesnar. Then he stuns Goldberg too. And then like the guy goes to throw Austin a beer and it hits him right in the side of the head. just the kind of night they're having.
Austin gets back and he's just like, oh, he's sitting in the hotel room like, well,
it was what it was.
It was what it was.
Also, this is Austin's last appearance for a while. He's done after this, which I mean, it just run his course. Like he'd been on TV a lot as the GM and the sheriff, and it was just time for him to step away. I think his contract was expiring. And
there just wasn't any life left in it. Like once you had done everything non-match related with Austin that you could do, but like at the end of the day,
how many people can he stun? How many beers can he drink? How many vehicle segments? Like it's just needed some time away.
And at the end of the day, if Austin just comes out and stuns people and you never get a match out of it, you're just burying people. Yeah. Because then like what, the old guy who can't wrestle kicking my ass? Great.
Promo for WrestleMania 21 in Los Angeles. WrestleMania goes Hollywood, and as we know, next year it'll be going Hollywood again, as they'll be at the new football stadium out in LA.
How ironic is that? That literally
finally sell out that stadium in Los Angeles. Vince will exercise that demon.
I cannot wait to hear that some smart calls in a bomb scare to the arena.
I have to move it to the Staples Center.
It's so ironic, actually. They just today announced that they're going to Los Angeles, and it happens to be the day that we're recording it. Not the date when we release this.
Vince comes out of character and thanks the fans. This is a really nice moment. It's good that we're getting a break from Mr. McMahon because the character had just gotten out of control with Zach Gowen and Stephanie and just some really like messed up stuff going on the previous year.
This would have been a really great opportunity to just put the Mr. McMahon character to bed.
Yeah.
Just be Vince on TV for a while.
Yeah. I mean, we've talked about 1999 would have been a good time to bury the Mr. McMahon character.
2001 would have been a good time to bury it.
There are years here where Vince McMahon's character is the worst thing in wrestling. Like, just the worst segments consistently, the worst matches, the worst storylines, and it continues for years after this.
We're still like 3 years out from when he wrestles God.
Yeah. The only thing they do with him that worked was the Trump match. Like, that's the only thing where his character makes money for this company after about 1999.
That's because his dignity is all he has left to offer. And then when he gives it, it's over.
Next up, we've got a WWE Tag Team title match as Scotty 2 Hotty and Rikishi take on the world's greatest tag team, the APA and the Basham Brothers. Two fatal four-way tag matches on the same show.
Let's go down these teams real quick. Rikishi and Scotty 2 Hotty have the tag belts. That shouldn't be happening.
That gimmick is years past its expiration date.
They are old men now. Rikishi will soon be out of this company. The APA, they are right about to break that up.
Yeah. Speaking of past the sell-by date, yeah.
The Basham Brothers were past their sell-by date the moment that they debuted.
Never a good gimmick.
They don't have Shaniqua anymore, I don't believe.
No, I think, did she just quit? I think she just, wasn't into this and quit.
I think so. And so, they're doing, twin magic, but they don't look alike.
They don't look alike! They don't look anything alike!
One of them's, got, a nose the size of Triple H's, and the other one looks very different.
Yeah.
And then there's the world's greatest tag team, who are, I do love that that's the tag team name that they settled on. Instead, we can't just be Team Angle anymore. We're not in a stable. What are we?
Right.
Well,
yeah.
We're the world's greatest tag team.
Yeah.
Do you think they should have kept them together longer than they did?
I think they had to try with Shelton.
It just sucks that Charlie Haas got nothing out of that.
I mean, he didn't have it as a solo. He was a good tag wrestler, but yeah, I mean, there's a lot of potential in Shelton Benjamin, and they really do try with Shelton. They do their best to get him over.
Oh, and that first couple weeks on Raw where he pins Triple H or
yeah, that's right after this. That's 2 weeks after this he beats Triple H on Raw. And just didn't have the promo ability, I think.
Yeah, that's what I mean, is that maybe if they'd given him more time, because they never really cut promos by themselves as a team. And it's just the second Benjamin showed any sign of a personality, they were like, yep, singles time, let's go. And obviously the SmackDown tag division really needed some help.
Yeah. Some stuff happens. Bradshaw hits a clothesline from hell on Danny Basham. He goes for one on Rikishi, but gets hit with a Samoan drop, and then Rikishi sits down on Danny for the pin. Nothing to that. There's 2 hours left in this show.
We're just about cresting the 2-hour mark in this podcast.
Yeah.
And fucking hell.
Promo for Edge's return. He's been out for over a year with a neck injury. He will return in the next few weeks on Raw.
I was so certain that was going to be such a fucking game changer.
And it was not.
Edge will come out and will... There are a lot of times in history where people have cut bad promos upon their return or fucked up and ruined it. I don't think anyone has ever said a more underwhelming return line than to come out to your music while Evolution and Randy Orton are in the ring, walk right up to Randy Orton and say, I don't like you.
Which is amazing, because that's just a great promo.
Why would he say that? Why would you do that? And then they try to get him over as a badass, which is not Edge.
Bombs. Yeah, they bring him out and they have him spear Bischoff, and they're trying to make him the new Austin. That is not his role.
No. His babyface role is the teen beat sensation.
Yeah.
And his bitterness at how badly this goes is what winds up getting him over.
Yeah. Oh, and then Jesse Ventura comes out. Great to see the body back at WrestleMania. Gets a huge pop.
Sure is.
He says he's going to interview somebody, and it's Donald Trump. Who is sitting in the front row. And he's got Don Jr. right next to him.
Yep. I did not remember that this happened.
Nope, me neither.
Listen, there are probably a lot of listeners to our program who are Republican voters. Let's just put it in that friendly way. Steve and I are not necessarily of the same ideological mindset as you.
And that's okay.
But fuck Donald Trump.
Yeah. The thing I love about this promo is Jesse asks him, like, what does WrestleMania mean to you? And Trump starts talking, like, when he gets asked a real policy question now as president, he's like, Vince is a great guy. WrestleMania is huge. It's the best. It's so great. I've been involved in so many of these.
Yeah. I wonder if
And
you asked him a straight question about, like, WrestleMania 4, if he'd be able to answer it. Like, no,
who
I'm
won
pretty
the
sure we
title
had.
at WrestleMania 4?
I'm pretty sure we had the one with Andre and Hogan.
The biggest one of all time. There was 100,000 people there.
100,000 people in Trump Plaza.
Jesse asks if he would have Trump's support if he ever got back into politics, and Trump said absolutely he would.
That's
Jesse.
That's such
I
deep
know.
irony. I can't even deal with it.
Dude, again, between these two, if you're going to say one of these guys was going to be president, you would have thought Jesse, I guess.
I guess.
You wouldn't have thought either of them would be, but
No, they were both jokes. Fuck.
Jesse teases he's running for president. Lawler says that maybe Trump will be Ventura's running mate.
God, it may as well have, honestly.
Oh, man. Yeah, that is a very strange segment to watch in hindsight.
16 years later, we live in just the weirdest alternate reality.
Next up, we've got a hair versus title match as Victoria takes on Molly Holly. Victoria is the women's champion. If Molly loses, she gets her head shaved. My understanding is this was Molly's idea. This was how she was going to get herself on WrestleMania this year because she had never been on a WrestleMania. She had never been on WrestleMania. She'd missed all the she hadn't been booked on any of the previous ones.
Now hold on, because Mighty Molly won the hardcore title at WrestleMania 18.
You're right. She never got an actual match at WrestleMania before.
Say she got that like $5,000. Hey, you were on the card. Here you go.
A door slammed in her face.
But like, this is the brilliant con by Molly Holly, right? Is she knows she's about to quit the business. She is pretty much done. She wants to retire, like go do her thing. She never wrestles on the
She ended
indies.
up doing
really.
yoga, I think.
Yeah, I think something like that. Like she never wrestles the indies. Like Shimmer is after her for like 10 years and they never get her. And so she's just like, let me get this big payday.
Yeah.
Because, by the way, the payday for the show had to have been astronomical.
I'm sure this was by far the biggest check she ever got.
Here, let's see who on the show it's the biggest check they ever got. Definitely Benoit's. Definitely Guerrero's.
Yeah.
Definitely, probably Chavo's. Definitely.
Maybe Foley. Maybe not. WrestleMania 2000, he was in the main event. That one sold pretty well.
Yeah, probably Christian.
Yeah. Definitely like, Molly and Victoria. Like
a lot of
definitely
people
the Basham brothers. Like, yeah. For a lot of people, this is the payout. Everybody in that cruiserweight match.
For a lot of people, this is walk away from the business money. Like, this is just like, yep, thanks for that $1 million. I'm out. And so Molly gets on this. She's like, yeah, you can shave my head. Whatever. It'll just grow back while I'm sitting on a beach.
Yeah. Howard Finkel does the announcing here for the only time all night, which I believe is a rib on him being bald.
I believe so.
God damn. Why did everything always have to be a rib on Fink?
Because that's what Vince... You can clearly chart like a pie graph of the things that Vince McMahon thinks are fucking hilarious across the course of WWE history, and Howard Finkel being bald is literally number one on that list. Jim Ross being super lame is number 2, and Pat Patterson being gay is number 3.
This is a match that probably should have gone on earlier in the show because the crowd's actually into this. Like, they want to see Molly get shaved. But, like, it's a little late in the show to be putting this on. Like, they're getting antsy. They've been there for, like, 3.5 hours at this point. They want to see the big matches.
Also, let's talk about this show, because the way that it's laid out, the first match, awesome. Second match, fine. Third and fourth match, huge storyline matches. Great, awesome. Then they saw some tits. Then they got a disaster, and then another disaster, and then another disaster.
Yeah.
30 straight minutes of garbage.
Yeah. Lawler's commentary here is especially gross as he questions whether Molly shaves her pubic hair. You can tell JR is starting to lose it with King during this match. Like, he's getting like, Jim Ross is maybe not the biggest fan of women's wrestling, especially in this era, but like, he at least like is going to take this seriously because it's his job to, and like, King is just a mess.
It would always disappoint me when JR would play along with King with some of the things that he would say. Where like he would be like, "Oh, she looks like she's like gets fucked a lot," and JR would be like, "Yeah, she kind of does." I'd be like, "JR, come on, man, you're the adult here." But like, it made me happy here because literally King is saying some gross stuff, and JR is just literally ignoring him and is just trying to be a broadcaster. It's kind of like how when you watch like college basketball games with Bill Walton on commentary, and like the professional announcer has to try to call the game while Bill Walton's being like, "Hey, did you ever see a butterfly?"
Yeah. Molly sets up for the Widow's Peak. Victoria reverses it into a backslide and gets the pin, so Molly's going to get her head shaved. She tries to run, then she manages to beat up Victoria and strap her into the barber chair. But she can't get the clippers going, and Victoria fights out. And then she starts shaving Molly's head. And as we always learn, shaving someone's head is really hard and takes a really long time.
Especially to do it in any way right. Like, it's not... like the only times...
long hair.
That's the thing, is that it never cuts as smoothly as you think it's going to.
No, and like they've just wrestled, so their hair's all wet, and like, I don't know, you need some really powerful clippers to cut through hair.
Well, that's
I feel like it would hurt too.
That's why in Mexico, when they do this, they don't do it on the day of the match. Like, they lose the match, and then they have to come out next time and get their head shaved. And then they just use scissors to cut like some of the hair off, and then they have to like leave and shave it professionally. You don't actually take the clippers to the head that night.
Yeah. So they cut away to show the video package for Angle versus Guerrero, and then they come back from the package, and like she's actually pretty much shaved her head.
And Molly does not look bad with a shaved head. Let me just be clear.
No, I thought she was quite attractive bald.
Here's the thing. Like, the idea that women cannot be attractive bald is such a fallacy. Like, it's not a problem. Like, it's always funny to me that it's just most hair versus title matches are only effective if the person like super extremely values their hair. That's why it's usually used for matches with like pretty boy heels versus like masked faces. That's what Mexico is. Every Rudo thinks they're the most beautiful man alive, even though they're a big fat slob. And every Technico treasures their mask because it's a connection to my late father who brought me to the matches when I was a boy. And that's why that matters. Here, it's just, hey, you want to see a chick get her head shaved?
Fuck yeah.
I guess.
Found Molly Holly very attractive in literally all of her iterations.
Right there with you, pal.
So, okay, we've got the WWE title match as Eddie Guerrero defends against Kurt Angle. Of course, Eddie won the title from Brock Lesnar at No Way Out. Kurt had been subtly manipulating Eddie for a while before that. Like, he talked him into not entering the Royal Rumble and just wrestling Chavo at the Rumble instead. Kurt won a number one contenders match at No Way Out by beating Cena and Big Show. So he, punches his ticket to face Eddie at WrestleMania, and then he turns on Eddie hard. Like, Kurt's been a babyface for a while. Like, basically since the previous WrestleMania. He turned face when he came back from his injury and had, great face run against Lesnar as champion.
Yeah,
Kurt turns on Eddie hard and is like, this man's a drug addict. Like, he doesn't deserve to be the world champion. Like, my kids watch this show. I can't have him setting the example that that's okay to them.
Let me talk about this because it is literally my favorite. It's among my favorite segments in wrestling history. Is the one that really, really gets this going. he, like you said, he's been subtly manipulating him for weeks, with the idea being, I'm eventually gonna come for the title, and Eddie, I just really don't want it to be you in my way, because if it is, I'll kill you. And Eddie, despite that, goes, gets the belt, and then like Kurt cuts that like he has this way, like sometimes Kurt can go so cold and like dead-eyed that it's freaky. And like when he's cutting that promo, he's just like, Eddie Guerrero, I want that title. You're holding my title, and my kids watch you. They watch you say that you lie and cheat and steal, and you're a drug addict, and you think that's okay. I'm a hero, and my children will worship me after they see what I've done to you. And like, it's scary. It's genuinely scary. And the idea is that he's cut that promo like live via satellite from his house or whatever. So he's not there. Yeah. And he's having, so Eddie Guerrero gets himself a match with Paul Heyman, because Paul Heyman's been hassling his shit forever. And the only agreement is that Eddie Guerrero has to handcuff his hands behind his back to get the match. So they do it, and he gets his hands cuffed behind his match, and they're having a good time. Like Eddie Guerrero's like dropping elbows onto Paul Heyman's crotch, and he's chasing him around. And it's just a lighthearted segment. Everyone's great. The crowd's popping. And then Paul Heyman runs up the ramp and out through the back, and like Eddie chases him like, where are you going? Where are you going? And then Kurt Angle in street clothes walks out around the entrance, taping up his hands. Yeah. And there's this moment where you like see the look in his eyes, and it's the most serious you've ever seen Kurt Angle. And the camera pans directly to Eddie Guerrero's face, and like the blood just drains out of it, because he knows exactly what's happening. He runs back to the ring, and he's like talking to the ref. He's like, get me out of these cuffs, get me out of these cuffs. And the ref's like, I can't, I don't have the key. And then Kurt just like stalks him like the Terminator, and like walks into the ring. And then for 5 straight minutes, he just punches Eddie Guerrero in his face until he's a bloody mess on the ground. And like the crowd, I've never heard a quieter crowd by the end. Because you've just witnessed a horror movie murder.
Yeah.
Like it's stunning in a way that like every second of this segment stays with me to this day. Just like the moment where the camera twirls around to Eddie and you see the look on his face, because he knows what's about to happen. That he knows that he's been manipulated and that he's about to die. I don't think I've ever seen an angle go from to I have to give you my money now as fast as this one.
And there's just something great to the minimalism of no chairs, no hitting anybody with a car, taped fists, and he just rains punches down on him.
And just mercilessly. That's the thing. Because they had been friends before this. Like, but Kurt made it very clear, don't get the title, Eddie. You don't know what's coming. And then just for him to just like a merciless, unfeeling robot just punch Eddie Guerrero until he's a mess.
Yeah.
It's just something that you don't see on wrestling television ever. Not at that time, for certain.
So Angle is out first. His facial expressions are terrifying. Just icy, cold stare.
I hate to use this phrase because of context, but he looks like a serial killer.
Yeah. And then Eddie is out second in a sweet-looking Cadillac lowrider. I love the lowrider entrance.
And to a just mammoth pop.
Oh my God.
He's a god here.
So over here in the Garden.
These are his people.
But he was over everywhere is the thing. Like, it wasn't just in the Southwest. It wasn't just Hispanic fans. Everybody loved Eddie.
I had to say, like, he was especially over with Hispanic fans, and that's what moved the needle. But he was still everyone's favorite wrestler for this year. Like, it wasn't... If you weren't watching then, it's hard to express. Because it happens so slowly and over time. Like, Los Guerrero kind of gets over. And
he was a heel for a long time.
Yeah.
Los Guerreros were heels nominally, at least, like, well into 2003. I guess it was when... I think one big thing was when Chavo got hurt and him and Tajiri teamed up.
Because that was, I remember they got a massive pop when they won that match.
Tajiri was a mega baby face.
And the thing is that people didn't like Chavo. People have never liked Chavo. No one likes Chavo. So like the second Chavo wasn't in the picture, people were like, yeah, here we go. And
And
like
then they brought him back, and everybody's like, "Oh, this is lame." But then they had Chavo turn on him, which made all the sense in the world.
and that was finally the excuse to like love Eddie.
Yeah,
And like that feud actually was super emotional. Like they like pulled their family into it, and like in a
Chavo
way that they would,
classic.
yeah, in a way that they would go back to with Eddie time and time again because he had so much family to work with.
Giant family. Yeah.
But he is he catapults to overness as quickly as I've ever seen anybody do it. And like he is a god. And he's just so joyful and full of life in a way that I don't think I've ever seen another wrestler be. He's finally comfortable in his own skin, and he's come through all of this trials and tribulations, and he's on top. He made it. He's living his dream. Eventually that dream's going to crumble as the pressure gets to him, and he just like can't handle it. But like in this moment, like this is it. Like this is exactly where he's always wanted to be.
And him and Kurt proceed to tear the house down here. I love this match.
Yes, it's a great match, and the finish to this match is one of my all-time favorites.
Just brilliant. I mean, so, Kurt works holds. Eddie picks up the pace whenever he can, but Kurt keeps shutting him down. He hits his suplexes. He works the ribs, gets him in the body scissors. Tries to superplex him. Eddie fights him off. Eddie goes for the frog splash, but Kurt gets out of the way. Eddie hits a series of suplexes, but Kurt counters, hits his own rolling Germans. Eddie blocks it, rolls through with a victory roll, but Kurt kicks out, levels Eddie with a clothesline. Kurt goes for the angle slam, but Eddie kind of rolls through it with an arm drag, which is an amazing counter.
Yeah, absolutely it is.
Kurt gets Eddie in the ankle lock. Eddie's able to turn over on his back and kick his way out of it. Eddie sets up for the frog splash, but Kurt pops up and suplexes Eddie off the top rope. Kurt gets the ankle lock again. Eddie rolls through it into a pin. Kurt kicks out. German suplexes him. Kurt goes for the angle slam. Eddie turns it into a DDT. Again, just amazing counters from Eddie here.
And that was the story of his match with Brock, too. Like, those matches are actually pretty similar up until the finishes of just, like, Eddie Guerrero getting thrown around, and all he has is just an endless stream of counters to everything.
Yeah, he can somehow counter the F5 into a tornado DDT.
Yep. You just can't stick him clean with anything.
Eddie goes to the top. He hits the frog splash, but Kurt kicks out. Kurt plays possum, then pops up, picks Eddie's ankle, locks on the ankle lock again. Eddie again manages to roll through to counter. He throws Kurt out to the floor, and now we get to the brilliant finish. Eddie loosens up the laces on his boot like he's trying to relieve the pressure on his ankle. Kurt gets him in the ankle lock again. The boot comes off. Kurt's holding it like what the hell just happened, and Eddie gets him in a small package and pins him.
Just genius. The ways that Eddie would come up with to get like over like the line cheating stealing idea are just some of the best things about him. It's just he had so much fun coming up with invented ways to like cheat without being a bad guy.
This is just perfect. You couldn't have drawn up a better finish for this match.
No, he's a genius. And like there's room for so much more after this. They don't get to do it because Kurt has to get his neck surgery right after this. Which sucks because there's like you could have 5 more matches like this.
Yeah, I mean they wrestle at SummerSlam, but Eddie's lost the title by then, and it just doesn't feel the same.
Yeah, if Kurt doesn't have to have his neck surgery, we probably don't get JBL.
Yeah, I could have just put the belt on Kurt instead.
That's so depressing.
So much better. All right, next we got the video package for Undertaker versus Kane. So this one kicked off back at Survivor Series where The Undertaker faced Vince McMahon in a Buried Alive match.
Yes, sure did.
Vince did one of the grossest blade jobs in history on that show. Just gushing blood like 2 minutes into the match.
I've never seen that match because I was allergic to Vince McMahon matches. Because his match with Hogan went so well that Vince decided that he could just go in the ring now. And he couldn't.
Kane interfered, attacked Undertaker, buried him alive. Let's back up. So Kane has lost the mask. This, when it happened, had me about as excited as any storyline development I can ever remember in wrestling. Like, that got me watching again. I had kind of tuned out because post WrestleMania, things have been pretty dire in 2003. When I found out Kane was losing the mask, like, I started watching again, and I became an every week watcher because I had to see the Kane stuff.
For 3 weeks, that Kane unmasked was the hottest storyline in years.
Yeah.
He takes off the mask. He immediately assaults Rob Van Dam.
The first question. He takes off the mask. What happened here? Did he have burn makeup on and it like smeared from him being sweaty during the match?
I think it was. Here's the thing. I could never decide if that's just the makeup he always had on under the mask, so it would hide his skin.
Yeah, because he had eye makeup, because there was openings around his eyes, so he had the black circles around his eyes, and
So
I guess just around his face. But like, the announcers are calling it like, oh, he's hideous.
Yeah. Oh, he's got horrible burns.
But like,
he doesn't.
Obviously, after this, the story becomes he's not actually burned, and that's a much better way to go with it. That was so much more interesting. That after all this, he's not actually burned; it's all just in his head.
He thinks he's horribly disfigured, but he's not. It was just Paul Bearer in his head the whole time.
Makes all the sense in the world, and what a dramatic reveal that would be! That holy shit, he's not actually burned at all.
He's just normal. And then like Rob Van Dam, and like. Rob Van Dam's the perfect foil for this, because Rob Van Dam's like so supportive, and he's like, "Hey, buddy, it's okay, just take it off. I still love you, bud. We're good." And then like when he chokeslams Rob and like sets off the fire, it's heartbreaking because it's just like in that moment you know Kane's gone. Like it's not your friendly
the
Kane.
Monster.
It's back. Like all that trauma has reemerged.
Yeah, the next week, like. It's Austin is trying to do a segment to like, Austin's actually being like supportive and being like, everybody cheer for Kane, come on. And Kane thinks like the crowd is making fun of him, and him and Austin end up fighting, and he ends up beating up Austin and choke slamming him. And
then I think, isn't it the Raw after that he and Van Dam have their cage match?
That's a while down the road. I think that's like after SummerSlam. It's the week after that he does the sit-down interview with Jim Ross where he lights him on fire.
That is... I loved the choice to bring back like the Mankind style sit-down. And then like Kane unspools the whole thing about how it's just psychological damage, and Paul Bearer always told him that he was a horrible, hideous freak.
You know what? We were talking earlier about the lack of like a Gene Okerlund style interview. That was Jim Ross when they were the 5 times they let him do it. Like Jim Ross can do that.
And like I thought like, oh, they're probably going to beat up Jim Ross. I did not think that he would beat him up, pour lighting fluid on him, and set him on fire.
Yeah. I'm sure it was a stunt double. They didn't set the actual JR on fire.
But so that really gave you a sense of where we were at. Like
this is fucked up. Like, this is going to go some places.
Was it the week after that he tombstones Linda?
Yes. They bring him out in chains.
Like a fucking monster.
Yeah, they're like, okay, he's, being held under house arrest, but, that doesn't preclude him from making a living. So, like, he's at the arena tonight, and they bring him out of a paddy wagon in shackles, surrounded by police, and they bring him to the ring, and he wrestles RVD in, like, a street fight. And
he just murders RVD.
Yeah, like, he kills RVD, he kills all the security guards, everybody. He chokeslams Bischoff off the stage. Like, he's out of control. And Linda McMahon comes out to try to stop him. And he goozles Linda. And
no one's ever gotten their hands on Linda.
Like, she's been, Stephanie slapped her once, but she's never been physical like this. King is like, okay, somebody's got to do something. And King comes to make the save, which is a really cool moment.
Yeah.
And Kane knocks him out. Like, Kane's unstoppable. And he tombstones Linda on the stage.
And in this moment, you realize that this is what Kane needed to be a top star.
Like, he's back.
Like, in this 3-week span, you've revived him as he could be the biggest heel in the company.
Yeah, like, and holy shit, they're about to put the belt on Goldberg, and we can have Goldberg and Kane on a collision course.
Like, this is next level shit. Like, this is a threat like I don't know we've ever seen. Like, Kane beats up like 20 people in Tombstone's Linda.
He's just a monster. He's unstoppable. But there's only one man who can stop him, and that's
And
Shane McMahon.
I've never seen a hot angle turn into a lukewarm pile of shit faster than Shane McMahon peppering Kane with his shitty punches.
Shitty punches. Yeah, like Shane storms the ring and like double legs Kane and starts beating on him. It's like, wait, this guy destroyed the entire roster last week.
This is a joke.
Yeah, this is horrible. This was the beginning of my like long running hatred for Shane McMahon. Like, which only ended when he turned heel and started doing the best in the world gimmick.
This includes a match where Kane puts jumper cables on Shane's balls and electrocutes him.
Yeah. A backstage segment where he like ties up RVD and pours gas on him is like threatening him with a match, but the match kept going out because they were breathing on it. So yeah, Shane and Kane have a last man standing match at Unforgiven, where Kane only wins because he rolls out of the way when Shane goes to do the elbow drop off the stage. And I don't know if this was before or after that, but Kane lights a dumpster on fire, which is highly symbolic.
Yes.
And Shane manages to like slip out of his grasp and kick him into the flames.
And it genuinely, you are meant to believe that this is the scene in the horror movie where the killer dies.
Yeah. Yeah, Raw ends with Shane standing over the fire and just going, burn in hell, you son of a bitch. And then Kane comes back the next week. And
yeah, they probably should have just ended the Kane character right there. He could have come out as Glenn Jacobs next.
Yeah, he went back to dentist school. He's Isaac Yankem again.
The other problem is that somewhere along the way, they realized that, Glenn Jacobs is actually a pretty good promo. So we should let him talk a lot more.
All the fucking time. Like, 10-minute promos every week.
Now, there are a couple of Kane... Like, I think Glenn Jacobs is a very underrated promo in wrestling history. Because he's saddled with this character. Yeah. So, like, it's really hard for him to get the chance to cut a decent promo. But do you remember that one where, like, somebody assaulted The Undertaker and, like, destroyed him? And, like, Kane was like, I'm going to find your destroyer, brother. I'm going to... And then, like...
Undertaker's eulogy.
And he sits there, and he's, like, holding the urn. And he's just like, And, like, at some point he admits that it was him. And it's, like, a 15-minute promo. And it's, like, genius. It's, like, he spools out how the last, like, 18 months were all him. That he had been doing it to Undertaker all along. And it makes perfect, coherent sense. And I'm like, where was this?
Yeah, I mean, that was the thing with Kane is, like, they could always get him hot again. But they would always screw it up. Like, it could never last.
Because people love Kane. Or loved Kane, I guess now. But, like, people were always ready to let Kane into their hearts again. And they would just always blow it.
So, at Survivor Series, the same night Undertaker did the Buried Alive match with McMahon, Kane beat Shane in an ambulance match to thankfully put an end to that feud.
Yep.
And then he came out and attacked Undertaker and buried him alive. And it was actually kind of portrayed as if Undertaker died.
Oh, it genuinely was. They, like, were even saying, like, there won't be any more... Like, Kane's like, no more Undertaker. Undertaker's gone. It's over.
Yeah.
Ghost.
And then we get to the Royal Rumble. Kane comes in and he starts cleaning house. And then the lights go out. And gong. Like we hear the gong and the crowd goes wild. Like Look, I think you're more of a fan of, much more of a fan of Biker Undertaker than I was. I think we probably both agree that by this point, the Biker character had kind of run its course.
I agree. Here's the thing. I was never a fan of Dead Man Undertaker, really. I lived through the early days of Dead Man Undertaker, and they weren't great. Like when you show like nostalgia video packages and stuff, it's easy to be like, "Hey man, that was cool as shit." But back in the day, it wasn't cool. It was very, very lame and bad. But people just have such a soft spot for that character.
It's iconic. It's such a. I mean, more than anything else, it's an entrance.
Yes, and that's really what it is. It's just like an opportunity to sit in the crowd and put your lighter up, and as the Undertaker walks to the ring is special, and it always will be. And like that's one of the like my regrets as a wrestling fan is I never got to sit in the crowd when the Undertaker came out.
I'm trying to think if I did. Yeah, I was at a Raw in 1999. Yeah, okay, I did. I got to see it one time.
Yeah, and like I've only ever been to like, well, he was around. I only went to Raw shows because SmackDown sucked, so I never got to see him.
So yeah, I mean, Undertaker does not come out at the Royal Rumble, and in fact, he does not appear one time during the entire build to this match. I don't even think maybe we heard his voice. I don't even think we heard the voice. I think it was just like a thing popped up on the screen, being like, "Face me at WrestleMania."
Yeah, and like Kane's just like, it's not real, it's not him, this is a hoax, it's not gonna happen.
Every week, it did get a little tiresome because it was like 12 straight weeks of this. Is he gonna come out? Of course not.
And like, it's very difficult to do a one-person storyline.
They've done it with Undertaker many times.
Yes, they have. And like Kane tried his best, and like they anticipate, like he didn't even really have to. From the moment they're just like, "Hey, Dead Man's coming back," you don't even need to sell it. And he's gonna fight Kane. Oh, really? Cool, I'm in.
Yeah. So we're booked for Undertaker versus Kane here. The presumption is the Dead Man character will return.
But we didn't know what it would look like.
No, we didn't.
That's the thing, because Taker is so different now. That like he had just been American Badass for so long. It's like, how do you make him Dead Man again?
Get to that in a second.
Yeah.
Kane comes out first. This is an awesome entrance, as we've talked about. Like the entrance is like the New York skyline. When Kane comes out, the buildings all catch fire on the screen.
Do you think they had to convince somebody like, do you think somebody backstage uttered the words 9/11?
I never thought about that until right now, so I'm thinking probably not.
But like literally, like we're close enough to 9/11 that Mick comes out in a New York, like a 9/11 firefighter shirt. So like somebody had to have brought it up. But like it's such an amazing visual of just like the whole New York skyline on fire as Kane comes out.
He gets to the ring. He's standing there, saying it's not real. He's dead. Long pause before the lights go out and we hear, "Oh, yes!" Very pleasant surprise to see Paul Bear.
Like this is the biggest pop of the entire night by the crowd, is when they hear Paul Bear's voice.
We haven't seen Paul Bear since 2000, I guess. He's back for a minute with Kane in 2000, but yeah, it's been years at this point, and we can understand why when we see him. He is not in good health. He is very heavy at this point. And
unfortunately, since we've been talking about all these wrestler deaths, we have to acknowledge that soon he'll be murdered by being buried in a concrete crypt by the Undertaker.
Is this going to be the year we do that Great American Bash?
God,
I think it has to be.
It's literally the worst show ever aired, and I really want to do it, yes.
Druids come out with torches, and we get the Latin chanting. It's going on for quite a long time. And then the gong, and he's here. It's the Undertaker, and he doesn't really look any different.
Okay, let me paint you a word picture here.
I gotta be honest, this was a huge disappointment. At the time, I was like, what the fuck?
So it's all pitch black, and like the druids literally have lit torches, like it's fire, like it's not like a prop. I was very surprised at that. That doesn't seem super safe, but whatever.
Complete violation of the fire code.
And like they got the mist rolling across the ground, and then like the camera comes up like in between the druids, so it's like looking through the fire tunnel, right? And like the Undertaker walks on, kind of like James Bond walking into like the revolver thing at the start of a James Bond movie, and he's wearing leather pants and a singlet top and a hat.
He's wearing the exact same gear he wore before, except he has a trench coat and a hat. Like, this is exactly what he wore as the American Badass.
And his leather pants are like unadorned with like booger red or whatever the fuck he would put on it.
God.
So it's just,
I mean,
it's a weird choice.
I don't know what he should have done here. I was picturing Ministry Undertaker with the vest and the big leather, whatever it is. I don't know how to describe it, but you know what I'm talking about.
Right.
I was somehow imagining his hair would be like all the way down his back, even though it's only been like a couple months.
He does have it grown out. It's like down to his shoulders. Like
he's wet. He's got it all wet back though, so it doesn't really look like it.
And he's got like this big hat on.
Big cowboy hat.
Here's the thing, is that academically, I fully understand that like this was not the Undertaker's idea. He loved the American Badass. It's all he wanted to be. So Vince had to come to him and be like, "Look, we need the dead man."
If he doesn't go back to the dead man, like this reinvigorated his career.
And I'm sure he was fine with it, but I'm sure he was
compare his position on the card this year in the second to last match, where the previous year he was wrestling Albert in the Big Show.
Very true. But I'm sure he was like, all right, I'll be the dead man, but I get to wear what the fuck I want because I'm not wearing any of your weird jangly harnesses anymore.
I don't know what he should. Like, should he have gone back to like the original gear, the gray gloves and boots? I don't think that's the right way to go.
That would have looked fucking corny. He'll eventually settle on it, where he's just wearing like the full body,
the tights and the
and he'll have like the super dark hair and it's like super long, and he's got the eye makeup, and that works. And he'll like start mixing in the MMA stuff.
Yeah,
but it takes him a while to find the Undertaker again, because he's been wrestling as Mark Calloway for a while.
Yeah.
So he's got to learn how to be like indestructible zombie man again. And it's been 10 years.
It's been like 4 years.
Okay, but he started wrestling like an actual wrestling style in like 97.
True. That is true. This is, more of a reversion to like the way he originally worked, where he'd move really slowly and lots of choking and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, literally until he wrestles like Edge and starts that feud, he doesn't go back to wrestling like actual matches. For like a year, it's just this garbage. Which is why they're setting up Mordecai to face him.
Mordecai. Kane plays this very broadly as he screams that, like, you're not real, you're dead.
So the Undertaker gets in the ring, takes the cap off, he does the eye thing. The fans are loving it. Like, he doesn't look right, but like it's a moment, right?
Sure. And then he pretty much squashes Kane. Like, it's like a 5-minute match.
This match sucks. Like, Undertaker and Kane have never had a good match. Let's
just
be clear about that.
Just want to point that out. If you think these guys ever had a good match, it's just nostalgia talking.
It's a dream in your head of what the match could look like. That never happened. The closest is the Inferno match, which is cool while also being very bad. This match, they have no chemistry. Kane is just terrified of him. The Undertaker's trying to remember what he used to do when he was 10 years younger. He doesn't quite have it. Like, he just kind of does his stuff, and then they tombstone and get out.
Yeah. 6-minute match. Undertaker goes over with the tombstone. I mean, it was not a good match, but it fulfilled its storyline purpose.
People were ready to insert what they wanted to see with Undertaker. It didn't have to be good. Like, the people were ready to have it, you know?
Yeah. All right. Video package for the main event. We've got Triple H defending the World Heavyweight Championship against Shawn Michaels and Chris Benoit in a triple threat match. Of course, Benoit won the Rumble back in January. He then surprised everybody by jumping to Raw and challenging Triple H instead of challenging for the title on SmackDown. It's the first time that had happened, and I think that was a good wrinkle to add to this situation.
Absolutely. Like
Triple H needed a fresh opponent. Like
he couldn't just wrestle Shawn Michaels for the rest of his fucking life.
God, no. And like he's beaten everybody else on Raw at this point. Like he beat Goldberg, he beat Triple H, he beat Booker T, he beat Van Dam. Like he's beaten Jericho. I don't know who else you could have put him against. And in terms of like Raw needs a break from Triple H as champion. Like he's been the champ for basically the last 2 years straight. Like we need somebody else to carry the title.
With the benefit of retrospect, it does kind of seem like a year from now, Orton should have taken Evolution from Triple H, and Triple H probably should have turned babyface, and that would have worked a lot better.
Isn't that a lot better instead of what they did? Yeah.
Yes. So like that's kind of, but it's not time.
They need a bridge champion to get us to when they can put the belt on Orton, and I think I would argue I think Booker could have been in this role if you'd booked him right. Like Booker getting his redemption at WrestleMania a year after he lost to Triple H, I think could have been a great moment.
Yeah, but it's just it would have taken a lot to heat Booker up again, and they just weren't prepared to do that. And Benoit was already ready. Like the fans were ready for Benoit. And like they get to the Rumble, and that's really when it gets special because the fans have been popping so hugely for Benoit all year long. Like really from the Royal Rumble match with Kurt where they give him the standing ovation, that continues on all through the year. Like he's especially the match with Brock, which is one of the special SmackDown matches of all time.
Yeah, Brock putting him out with the Brock lock, that Boston Crab where he wrenches his knee all the way over his head is an incredible hold.
I vividly remember when he put it on Benoit, and then when he put it on Mysterio.
Oh my God!
And I was like, I think Mysterio's dead. I think you can't do that to him.
So Shawn Michaels was able to insert himself into this match by knocking Benoit out with sweet chin music at the contract signing, and then signing his own name to the contract.
This is sort of an inversion of what I call the test clause, which is that if you are going into the Royal Rumble and you jump somebody, then you can just take their spot. That's the test clause. Much like that, if there's a contract signing and you sign the contract before somebody else does, you get their match.
Yeah, that's how that works. Everybody knows that.
If Funaki had run in here, it would have been a 4-way.
Yeah, I mean, the decision to add Shawn, I think, pretty much makes sense. Like, wasn't really, I mean, it would have been great to see him work with Rock. That wasn't going to happen, and otherwise I don't really know what you're doing with him on this show.
Plus, then you don't really have to work super hard to make Triple H versus Benoit a super hot angle, because Michaels and Triple H are already bringing the heat with the story that they have.
Yeah.
So you just add Benoit into that, and he's super over and people wanted to see him win, and you basically already have the match set up. Like, you don't have to do any extra work.
Shawn is out first, kind of just wearing his usual gear. I think you can kind of tell he's not getting the title here.
Yep. He definitely would have been wearing some kind of sparkly onesie or something if he was going to have a big moment here. And it must be said, too, like, isn't Shawn hurt or something?
Yes, he has a torn ACL, I think. But he works. He doesn't even go on the shelf right after WrestleMania. He keeps working until the Hell in a Cell match with Triple H in June.
So let's be clear. A torn ACL, which is one of the worst knee injuries you can realistically have.
Yeah.
Not only does he wrestle this match, which is a 5-star classic, in which he goes at 100 miles an hour the whole time, but he doesn't leave until after he wrestles a 45-minute Hell in a Cell match.
Yeah, I don't understand how that's physically possible, but he pulled it off.
Shawn Michaels does not process pain like you and I. If I'd stubbed my toe, I would have canceled WrestleMania.
Benoit's at second, looking like he just stepped out of a swimming pool.
Chris Benoit making absolutely zero concessions fashion-wise to the fact that this is WrestleMania is just so him that I loved it. He walks out like this is an episode of Heat. Like there's just no reaction.
Like, I'm pretty sure he literally like gets in the shower in like his boots and tights. He's so wet.
It's very possible. Unless there's just like people at the entrance with squirt bottles just like spraying him down. Like I it can't be pleasant to wrestle him at the start of the match before he like but also
dries out.
It must be said too, like if you've ever seen Benoit in WCW, you know what dry hair Benoit looks like, and
Not
he looks
good.
like
Not good.
like an old sponge.
Triple H is out third. He's wearing white boots. I love this look.
What a king. Our king of kings, Triple H with the big white boots.
I feel like last time I said I didn't like Triple H in like different colored tights, but I actually love it. Like it's so good to like shit because he just had the exact same look for 10 years. Like just shaking it up a little bit was a very nice change.
And one of the most fascinating things is just like when guys change up their look like just a little bit, the anger it can engender in people. Like, do you remember when Batista came out in blue tights and blue boots?
Batista, yeah.
Like, that's a thing that followed him for like 3 years after that. To the point where he'd just be like, yeah, dudes, I wore blue tights one time. What the fuck is your problem? And it would be that way with Triple H. It would get him more heat when he wore like purple tights and like white boots, and it'd just be just such
super
cheap
heelish.
Yeah, it was like, what a dickhead.
He's trying to be Ric Flair.
Look at him thinking he can pull off white boots, but actually he can.
Benoit and Michaels fight over who's going to get to beat up Triple H, which allows Triple H to swoop in and take the advantage. Triple H goes for an early pedigree on Michaels, but Benoit clotheslines him. Michaels gets clotheslined out to the floor. Benoit hits the rolling Germans on Triple H. Benoit goes up to the top, but he gets crotched by Michaels. Triple H DDTs Michaels. That puts him out of the ring. Triple H and Benoit fight on the top rope. Triple H hits a superplex. Triple H goes for the pedigree. Benoit reverses it into the crossface. Michaels breaks that up. Benoit hits the German suplexes on Michaels. Goes up top, hits the diving headbutt. Michaels recovers. He throws Benoit out of the ring. He hits Triple H with the diving elbow. He hits sweet chin music, gets 2 count, but Benoit pulls Triple H out of the ring. They're just firing on all cylinders here.
This match rules so hard from start to finish. I love it so much.
This has got to be one of the best triple threats I've ever seen.
I say, if you're having the argument as to what's the best in-ring main event of a WrestleMania ever,
yeah, it's up there. Rockin' Austin from 17 is, I think, untouchable.
I don't necessarily think it's untouchable as a match, but it is untouchable as a main event, if that makes sense. Like, as a spectacle, it's untouchable. Like, maybe if Hogan and Rock had been a main event, but, like, it's not... You can't beat it as a main event. But in terms of just straight in-ring work, this is right there, man.
Michaels gets catapulted into the ring post and he blades. It wouldn't be the Ruthless Aggression era if Shawn Michaels weren't blading for no reason.
Like, I feel like genuinely when Vince McMahon said no more blading, he literally just announced that in a room with only Ric Flair and Shawn Michaels in it. And it was just like, hey, you two, knock it off. No one else is doing that.
And it was Shawn who killed it for everybody because he did that sick blade job in the match against Jericho. And it turned out one of the executives from Mattel was sitting in the front row with his kids.
Ooh.
Yeah. And that was the end of Blood. Benoit gets Michaels in the crippler crossface. Shawn is about to tap, so Triple H grabs his hand to stop him from tapping out.
Oh, so good.
Benoit slams Triple H into the ring steps. Surprisingly, he does not blade here.
I think he thought about it. Maybe
It comes later.
Yeah, it's like, not time. Almost.
Triple H clears off the announce table. Him and Michaels grab Benoit and they like get him up for a suplex and then just kind of drop him through the table.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, smart to structure it this way. Give Benoit, it looks like Benoit's done here. Give him another obstacle to overcome. Triple H gets posted. He finally blades. What took you so long, Hunter?
It's like, it's been too soon, Sean's. I want mine to be special.
Triple H hits the pedigree on Michaels. He's slow to cover, and Benoit swoops in to break up the pin. I seem to remember Benoit being down for longer, but that was a pretty quick comeback.
Yeah, it really was.
Benoit gets Triple H in the sharpshooter. Michaels nails him with sweet chin music to break it up.
That's not the one where he comes out of nowhere, right? Or is that one? Where he like literally comes from off the screen?
I think that is it. He did a good one earlier when Triple H was setting up for the pedigree.
Yeah, so that was good. But I think this is the one where like Shawn Michaels is literally like out and you don't even think he's part of it. And literally, he's like, his foot comes from off camera to take out. It's very cool.
Michaels covers Benoit. Benoit kicks out at 2. Michaels sets up for sweet chin music. Benoit ducks it, and he dumps Shawn over the top rope out to the floor. Triple H goes for the pedigree. Benoit reverses it into the crossface. Triple H drags himself to the ropes. Looks like he's going to tap out. He's reaching for the ropes. Benoit manages to roll him back into the middle of the ring while still keeping him in the crossface.
That's one of the... If I were making like a list of like the most joyous moves I've ever seen performed in wrestling, this would be very near the top of it. Of just like that moment, like, well, that was our shot. All right, it's gonna be a pedigree, and we're gonna be out of here. All right, cool, whatever. Because we haven't even really talked about like the depression of being a Smark during this era. Like everybody that you thought could be the guy, Triple H jobbed him heartlessly. Scott Steiner, Booker T, Rob Van Dam, Shawn Michaels, Goldberg, all of them, one after another, after another, after another. And for it to be Benoit is just like, no, it's not. Shut up. It's not going to happen. Like, I was that guy at, like, the WrestleMania party. Like, guys, stop being excited. It's not going to happen. And so that moment where it looks like Triple H is going to reach the ropes and it's going to be over, it's like, yep, here we go. All right, it's happening.
Yeah.
Everything's going to hell.
And then he rolls him back into the middle of the ring. And there's like, nowhere he can go.
I leaped out of my seat. I was like staring at the corners of the screen like, where's Michaels? Where's Michaels? Where's Michaels?
Yeah, where's Michaels? Where's Evolution? Which is almost kind of a plot hole in this match. You know what you could have done, and maybe it would have distracted from what was good. Evolution could have tried to interfere, and Foley and Rock could have cut them off.
That would have been very cool.
I think that would have been, and Foley and Rock kind of get their revenge. But no help is coming for Triple H. I just love the visual here. He's all bloody. His like elbow pad is like rolled down onto his wrist. His hair is in his face. Benoit's covering his face and his nose and he can't see. And he's just fighting and struggling, but there's nowhere he can go. And he lifts his hand and he finally taps out and the crowd just explodes.
And we're on this camera angle, like basically like on the ground. So we're like staring straight at Triple H's face. And all you can see is just like Benoit pulling for all he's worth because he knows this is his moment. And Triple H, like, you're just staring at his hand like, is it? Is it? Is it? And when he taps out, like, I've never felt such a feeling of relief in my wrestling watching life. That, like, finally somebody beat Triple H and it's Benoit. clean with the crossface. It's unthinkable. It's like a fever dream that this could actually take place.
Yeah. It's an impossible dream, but it's come true. Chris Benoit is the world heavyweight champion. Like, he tapped out Triple H at Madison Square Garden in the main event of WrestleMania. It's unbelievable that this is happening. Like, Triple H, who never loses, Chris Benoit, who we never thought would get the world title, like, is getting it on the biggest stage.
Yeah, it's not just that Triple H never loses. WWE has never had a long-term heel champion hold the belt and control the promotion for as long as Triple H does here. This is arguably the most heat they've ever had to put a babyface over with from a heel. And that will continue to be the case until Lesnar later down the road, but that's down the road. For it to be Benoit at the 20th anniversary at Vince McMahon's signature show, the show that Vince McMahon made in his own heart and in his image, and for him to pick Benoit is such... I'm saying it out loud and I don't believe it. Like, it doesn't make sense. And I think that's why maybe it hurt Vince so much to have to erase Benoit. And maybe that's why they went so drastically with it. Is it just like, Vince gave him everything here.
Yeah.
It must really hurt to have had that match to have to say Triple H and Shawn Michaels in a triple threat match, you know?
Yeah. JR absolutely crushes the call. You know, Benoit's 18-year odyssey has culminated in winning the World Heavyweight Championship. You know, so many times Benoit's been so close and fallen just short, but he never gave up. Chris Benoit is the heavyweight champion of this world.
And the cinematography of the next moment, too, because they've been crushing it all night, but this is the best one. Benoit gets up on the top rope, holds the belt above his head, and confetti explodes. Yep. Confetti is raining down around him. He is crying and holding it and screaming for the sky. Everyone's giving him a standing ovation and freaking out. You can see people like jumping up and down in the aisleways. And then he steps down from the rope and turns around, and Eddie's just there.
Yeah.
With a smile on his face.
Did you have any concern that Eddie was going to turn on him?
Yes.
Yeah, right? It's Eddie Guerrero.
The moment I saw him there. And, like, even earlier in the promo, Benoit was like, "You're the guy who's never turned on me." And I'm like, "Excuse me?"
Yeah, he has.
You've betrayed each other hundreds of times.
Yeah. Like, Jesus. That's
and, like,
sting stupidity.
And that moment that he's like, Eddie's smiling at Benoit, and I was like, because it's kind of like a smug smile, and I'm like, oh
no, not tonight, not like this.
What if it had happened?
Honestly, it would have been terrible. Like,
it would have been a disaster. Yeah.
It's just sometimes you gotta give people hope. Like, just let people have their good moment here.
And let me just be totally honest with you. I am open and honest about this. Because, like I said, I was the guy at the WrestleMania party who's like, "No, it's not going to happen. This is so stupid. Actually believing in things is dumb, you guys. Ironic detachment's the only way to go through life." The moment they embraced in the confetti with their belts together, I genuinely cried. Like, I broke the fuck down.
It is one of the best constructed moments in wrestling history. I don't think you can make it any better.
They made it together.
Yeah.
Like, the fact that either of them could have made it is such an improbable story. That from, like, mid-Carters in WCW, who they valued for nothing, to coming to WWE and having to claw just to get any sort of attention during the most stacked period in wrestling history, to surviving to this point and getting the faith of people just by putting on amazing performances night after night, and finally finding their fan base. 30 years in the business, they finally find their fan base. At the same time. At the same moment.
Yeah.
They have that moment together.
It's a miracle.
You couldn't write it. Like, you can't make up 18 years of struggle in history. You can't make up 20 years of friendship and being on the road together. You can't write this. All WWE, to their credit, didn't write it. They just got out of its way.
No, and unfortunately, this is the real world, and we don't always get storybook endings because
this is now the most harrowing, depressing moment in wrestling history.
So sad. I mean, I do get chills and a feeling watching it, but then I have to think about like barely a year after this, they find Eddie dead in a hotel room, and a couple of years after this, Benoit kills his wife and son and himself.
The love between these two men is part of what happens to Benoit. Yeah. And like that hurts so bad that it could go so wrong so soon.
Yeah. This feels like maybe it would have been a good time to hang it up as a wrestling fan.
Like it really feels like
this would have been it.
For a couple of shows now, we've said like this is the end of the Attitude Era. This is the end of the Attitude Era. I guess you could say that this is the true end. Because now we're building the stars of the next era definitively, and this is the final goodbye, where it's just like, Goldberg's gone, Austin's gone, this is the last time you'll see Mick and The Rock, like everybody's just gone.
This is kind of when they've 100% moved on from that.
And the guys that you were breaking in when you started watching at the start of the Attitude Era, they've made it now. Like, the guys that you rooted for when they were mid-carders and 8-minute matches on Nitro, here they are at the top. It won't get better than this. You watched a career go from the bottom to the top. It's beautiful. Turn off your television. It's going straight to hell.
Yeah, this is just one of those things where it was the dream, and we found out the hard way that sometimes our heroes aren't the heroes we hope they are in real life.
Dream over.
So yeah, that. Okay, I have seen footage of Benoit celebrating with his family. I don't know whether that. Do you remember? Was that on the actual show and now they edited it out? Or was that after the show and they it was on DVD stuff?
The show ended, I vividly remember, with them raising each other's hands in the confetti with the shot from below. That's how the show goes off the air. So I think that was just like bonus features on the DVD.
Yeah, and then like Daniel, his son, he would later kill, gets in the ring, and I think Nancy gets in the ring too, and yeah, he celebrates with them and his other kids.
Probably the right decision to remove that, if it was part of it.
Yeah, I feel like you're right, and it was just like that was shown like on DVDs, and honestly probably B-roll on the news after he killed them. Yeah. And then we go to a highlight package to wrap up. I mean, what an unbelievable... I mean, I'm drained talking about it. It was a 5-hour show, but it's as watchable as a show that long can be. This
is the best WrestleMania. I'm willing to spiritedly debate that with anyone who wants a piece. I don't think they'll ever again be able to capture this kind of moment where like every match has this deep layered storyline, despite the fact that the TV is garbage largely at this point. They just luck their way into a bunch of brilliant storytelling right at the right time, right when they decide to do a changing of the guard, right when they do a show that means so much to Vince personally that he puts all of himself into it, right at a moment when so many stars are coming up and cresting at the same time. Because I don't think that they've had a show since then, to this day, that made so many stars in one night. Like, it was just a perfect marriage of everything. Like, this is as good as the concept of WrestleMania can be. It's beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, just an epic WrestleMania in so many ways. Great matches, great storylines, great moments, honoring the history of the company, setting us up for the course going forward. It just kind of hits everything you could possibly want from a wrestling show.
And then we come to WrestleMania 21 next time, where everything's different again.
Yeah, but I mean, if we're going to talk about making stars, man, they make a lot of guys at WrestleMania 21. Like, they make their next generation in one night the year after this.
Because there's a lot of uh-ohs on the way to 21, and they're like, well, we got to try some mulligans here. And they've
Well,
managed to land with most of them.
desperation can be the best thing. Sometimes you need that to really get the creativity going. But yeah, I mean, as great as it is seeing Benoit and Guerrero get crowned here, we know those are not the guys who are like leading the company into the next era. They're both too old. They've both got health issues. And they're just not they're not Vince McMahon top guys. They're not the right size.
But next time we're going to get Cena, Batista, Edge, Mysterio
Orton.
a little bit, Orton. Fuck.
Yeah.
Everybody comes of age at the same time. The whole OVW squad.
It's Hollywood dreams, and then once again it will turn into a nightmare, but we'll have that in the coming weeks.
And I absolutely promise you that we will do impressions of the commercials for WrestleMania that they did. I'm gonna call my shot on that, and I can't wait.
Oh, so yeah, got that to look forward to next time as we cover WrestleMania 21, where WrestleMania goes Hollywood. Thanks for listening. We'll see you again next time.